What's up, everybody? Wolf from Walmart. We're back, baby, again.
Not a bad fish right there, guys.
Oh, no.
Out here catching Folsom bass right now, dude. Woo, he's a little chunker.
What up, everybody? It is I, Dave Erkey, host of the Whole Angler Podcast. I am here tonight, and I will explain, like, I guess I'm always like this. I don't understand. I'm so discombobulated lately. So it's either an audio thing or it's a video thing. And tonight, everything worked out perfect. And, like, right as I'm talking to our guest tonight in the green room, like, my brain just kind of, like, did a backflip. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what's going on. I just, life's been really busy lately. Tons of blessings, kids, wife, work. It's been awesome. I get to go fishing. Actually, I get to go fishing tomorrow, which is pretty rad. And we get to test out the new, the Wilderness Systems Tactical Pro 128. It's like a prototype boat. We're going to go put it on the water. Me and James from Kayak City, we're going to go out there and we're going to have a good time. We're going to meet up with a couple buddies. Maybe we catch fish, maybe we don't. Either way, being able to test like a prototype kayak and like film it and do some fun stuff with that, that's like the icing on the cake. So I'm real happy right now. My life is blessings on blessings on blessings. And speaking of blessing, my buddy tonight, he came in on a pinch. I was like, hey man, what you got going on tomorrow? He's like, I'm good. I'm like, sick. So without further ado, I bring to you my buddy Armando.
Dude, nobody has ever described my appearance as a blessing. That's gonna be a first.
How are you?
How's it going, man?
I'm well, dude. Like I said, just busy. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Since those two jerks at the Catch Podcast never bothered to invite me to their podcast, I invite them, bunch of jerks. I'm kidding. I love those guys, Brad Higgs and Matt Souders.
Dude, yes. Shout out Brad and Matt, by the way. They've been putting up with me on the thread lately. I drop a lot of memes and then just like ghost. So they've been gracious enough to laugh at some of them.
Cool dudes.
Yeah, sure. They're the best. So first off, Armando, why have you not been on the Catch Podcast? Brad, Matt, hello.
I'm just kidding. A bunch of jerks. Jerks.
Right.
Nah, I'm kidding. I joke. I don't know if I've been on the pod. Maybe I have. I don't remember. Because me and Brad and even Matt, we used to be on the Paddle and Fin Network all together. So I know I've been in Brad's show. We even I think it's the first time I was actually sharing kind of like the podcast stage with Brad. I think it was an episode of, what was the name? It was, I forgot. God, I'm drawing a blank here. But there was an episode that was more about teaching. What was the name of that episode? I forgot. But anyways, the guys were sick. They couldn't do it. So me and Brad sent me a message to the chat. It's like, hey, you want to fill in for them? Like, sure. So immediately me and Brad kind of clicked in that aspect. Like, oh yeah, I like this guy. This guy's cool. And we did a impromptu podcast, like a last minute, to fill in a slot. And it wasn't even our podcast, because I have my podcast, Bass, Kayak, and Beers, which was in the Paddle and Fit Network. And then before I arrived, Brad already has his, which was, oh God, Brad is going to kill me for not remembering it. So will Matt. Final Cast. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. And they would do product reviews. And and the one we were filling in for, I forgot. Oh
Bass
my God.
Fishing for Noobs.
Bass Fishing for Noobs. Thank you.
Yeah.
God, I drew a blank. I think that was the one we were filling in for. I think we start talking about chatterbaits, something like that.
It sounds about right. If Brad's involved, yeah.
I've been a couple. So me and Brad and Matt have shared the stage in Paddle and Fin and in my podcast. So I may have been in the Catch Podcast. Maybe I don't, and probably don't remember. I don't know. But if I don't, then those guys are jerks. But if I do, then my apologies.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, boys.
No, they're cool. I
So,
love what they're doing
dude,
with the Catch podcast.
yeah, and from what I hear, like Paddle and Finn was like a really rad crew to be a part of. Like, you guys did fishing trips and stuff together, or were
I
you ever
never got
doing
a
any of that?
chance because it was always kind of far away from me.
Yeah.
We had a good group. We were at each other's throats. Brad can tell you the stories, man. Me and Brad one time we were at each other. I pissed off Brian Schiller, who is the founder of Paddle and Fin, so bad one time. Dude, I called him up to kind of like see because I pissed him off in the chat room. But I wasn't because it's hard to get a gauge on how much I pissed him off. But Joey, judging by the all caps response, like, oh no, I hit a nerve. So I called him up jokingly, like, hey, are you pissed off? Like, and dude, he was like so mad at me. I can't even remember why. But he was like, I don't even want to talk to you right now. Don't call me. Like, wait, like, get over it. I'm like, I'm fine. My bad, my bad. So we would get at each other's throats pretty bad, but it was funny. Looking back at it, it was funny. We had some really heated debates on the chat, which I'm kind of sad that a lot of it never played out in a podcast. There were a couple of episodes when me and Brian, I would be at Brian's live show, the OG show, which was on Thursdays. And it was a couple of episodes, me and Brian would go at it respectfully. Like, we weren't calling each other's names or anything like that, but we would have a not heated, but a strong, opinionated discussion on certain subjects. So it was fun, man. I was super sad. It was probably, I want to say it's the hardest decision that I made in my life, obviously, because it's still just a podcast. It's still just fishing. But it was hard for me. Like, I had to mull that decision over for like 6 months finally until I built the courage to tell Brian, almost with a lump in my throat, hey, man, I'm going my own ways. And Brian was super supportive about that. I love those, everybody, Susie Roloff, Dustin, Milford, who was there. I can't remember the names of everybody. We had a great time. It was awesome. So yeah, Paddle and Fin, it still is a great podcast. So if anybody that hasn't heard from Paddle and Fin, go check it out. It's on pretty much every podcast streaming platform. And back in the days, we used to have 8 shows a week.
8?
Now I think it's down to well, 2 of the shows, 7 shows a week, so 1 every week, and then on the weekends it would be a rotating show. Like Chasing the Tide with Dustin Nichols was one Sunday, and then another Sunday would be another podcast, which I forgot the name of the host. Oh God, I feel bad when I don't remember the names. But it was about traveling from place to place to do kayak fishing. There was another guy who was there for a short time. He had another episode. I forgot the name of it as well. So there were like Monday through Friday, it was like 5 episodes. The same, each one tackling a different subject. Mine was talking to personalities. The OG show was a live show. Final Cast was product review with Brad and Matt. Before Matt, there was somebody else. Bass Fish for Noobs one, Milford, I think forgot his first name. And then Sean Lavery, and then Sean Lavery took over. Susie Roloff had the women's outdoor adventure, which was pretty cool. I love her show. And then they also, and I think they still have it, the Hunt Episode, which was with Brad Hurlebos, which he talked about hunting, which I thought it was great.
Feather and Fur or something
Feather
like
and Fur, that's correct.
Yeah,
Feather and Fur.
All right, yeah.
It was cool.
Dude, man, that sounds like such an awesome group of people. Like, that's a great way to just get involved, period, is to like have a group of people around you. And then the best part about it, having a message board. Like, if you could come up with like a blurb or something, like just one post a week, like memories from the message board, and just find like people heckling each other.
We don't want that.
Yes.
We got kicked out of that chat as soon as me and Dan and Perry, we both got kicked out of that chat as soon as I actually left the chat because me and Brad Hicks went at it. It was hilarious. Looking it back, it was so stupid, so silly. So I was like, I'm done with this, and I left. And then Brad's co-host at that time texted Brian, and then Brian this is what happened. Said Armando left the chat, and it's like, what happened? Brad said this, and then Brian got upset, and he called me, like, it's all good, it's all good. I was just, it's too much drama right now. Like, there was a point we were going at it pretty bad, but it was stupid. Me and
Well,
Brad are super cool, man. I love
yeah.
Brad. We were super cool.
I was gonna say family has the worst
Yeah.
arguments. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't
Yeah.
argue with the guy on the street. Well, maybe if you like have road rage like I do sometimes, but like you don't really argue with random people too much. It's usually the people that you have emotional investment with is where you like
with your family, right? Like,
yeah. So
That was
speaking
cool.
of which, speaking of family, Armando, it's time to open up your life, dude. Let's talk about everything
Let's
from the
do it.
beginning. So you were born not fishing, but you were born introduced to fishing. Let's hear
like-
how this goes.
So how far back do you want me to go? Like, I don't want to be.
When
You tell
and where
me if
were
I'm
you
going
born?
way too far.
No, when and where were you born? Let's go back.
So
yeah,
in 19, no, kidding. So no, I started fishing pretty young. But it was with me and my dad. We would go to a nearby kind of. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico until I was in my mid-30s, and I moved to Dallas, Texas. So me and my dad would go fishing like since I was 5 years old. But neither me and my dad knew what we were doing. Like he was just taking me. It was more about spending father and son time than anything. I don't even remember catching anything while I was with my dad. And it was mostly it was kind of fun. Some of my earliest core memories was me going to a lake, digging on dirt and looking for night crawlers, putting them in a hook and throwing it out there, and maybe catch, I don't know, some type of, what they call, what's the cichlids?
Oh yeah.
I know it's that species of like crappies, not crappies. That's another name,
like a panfish.
Yeah, it's panfish. So I think in Puerto Rico they were called Oscars, and there's another one. There's some peacocks too, and all that. I don't even remember catching anything, to be honest with you. So I don't think I did, because I remember digging for night crawlers, and I think I would have remember digging for. Then I would probably remember catching a fish. The first time I remember catching a fish was surf casting in salt water. We used to stay on summer. My dad and my family and some of my dad's closest friend, they would rent like back then, no Airbnbs, but it was like
Beach
a
house.
vacation rental, and it had like a nice man-made, not man-made pond, but just like a pond in the beach, but it was a reef. So they had like, I guess, kind of man-made reef, you could say. They put about a bunch of rocks and everything to make kind of a pond out of the beach. So it was full of like aquatic life. So it was great for surf casting. And I think, I don't even remember, I think it was like a snapper or a grouper or a small grouper, not the Goliath grouper, or maybe a rock bass. I can't remember what it was, but I remember that was my first catch, and I must have been like 7 years old, and I was so excited about it. My mom tells me these stories. I vaguely remember it, but she would tell me that, or if you ask her, she'll tell you the story. She will wake up early on Sunday mornings, and by the time she woke up, she would see me sitting on the floor in front of the sofa with my rod and my tackle box and watching outdoor shows of fishing. Like, I don't even remember the shows. It might have been like Bill Dance and some of those, rerun shows on cable TV. So I was obsessed with fishing since I was young. As I got older and got into my teens, none of my friends really did fishing. And I used to live in Puerto Rico, Caribbean island. And the cool thing to do and what would get the girls' attention was surfing. So, and I've always loved outdoor sports. Any kind of outdoor nature sports, I'm on it. Like, I loved it. I'm a certified scuba diver for deep scuba diving. That means like there's the general, like the beginner certification, and there's the one that you can go up to 100 and something feet. I got the second one because I love scuba diving. That was a passion of mine and it still is for so many years. Just that it's gone so expensive now that I live in Dallas. Obviously, there's no sea around here, and traveling with scuba diving equipment is I'm just getting old for that. But when I lived in Puerto Rico, I used to do a lot of scuba diving. Used to do a lot of surfing. So fishing kind of like nobody did it. None of my friends did it at that time. And it wasn't until I moved to Texas when I was in my mid 30s that I kind of rekindled that love for bass fishing. Which it's funny because in Puerto Rico there's not a lot of bass back then. There wasn't a lot of bass fishing. Now I think they have like 8 bass fishing clubs. I'm assuming bass fishing at some point was introduced into the island to attract American tourists, being that Puerto
Yeah.
Rico is part of the U.S.
Yeah.
So I think, and peacock bass, I don't think they're native to Puerto Rico. I think also that was introduced, but so bass fishing back then wasn't a thing. It is now, but it wasn't a thing back then. And you never get. I mean, to catch a 5-pounder in Puerto Rico, that's like catching a 15-pounder here in Texas.
Oof.
And I may be exaggerating a little bit, but it's still not, on the same level as United States. And we don't have like big bodies of water, like lakes,
Yeah.
to that extent. So more like saltwater fishing is the thing there. But so yeah, so when I moved to Texas, I kind of rekindled that love that I had when I was little, watching Bill Dance and all those outdoor shows for bass fishing. So I started getting into bass fishing. The beautiful thing about Texas, and I'm blessed to be in Texas, and I don't want to sound like this uber Texan, right? But
No.
as far as bass fishing goes, I mean, this is the mecca. Like,
Yeah.
bass fishing in Texas. Texas Wildlife Department takes so much care of the bass fishing here. Every year they're restocking lakes with smallmouth bass and largemouth bass, Guadalupe bass, spotted bass. So, you can go. I literally have a creek down, like, and go walking distance and easily catch a 3 or 4-pounder.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
it's, everywhere you go. Those areas, those old school videos by John B. when he got into Guggen Squad and moved to Texas, all those videos that he has of creeks in Dallas, that's all around me. Like, all everywhere around me. So that'll give you an idea of how good bass fishing is here. So eventually I got into a kayak. A buddy of mine who no longer does kayak fishing, he actually bought a bass boat because he has kids now, and he figured, well, getting a boat now easier with the kids, especially when they're so young. So he moved on from kayak fishing. But the first time I went kayak fishing for bass was about 6 years ago, and we went into those Pelican.
The Pelican 120s or whatever they are.
The like little sit inside. And we went to a lake called Grapevine, and we were a couple of times, never got a bite. And then finally, about the third time we go, I just bought like a spinning combo at Bass Pro Shop, and I hooked into, I mean, it felt like a 10-pound bass. I'm sure it wasn't, but that thing took me for a sleigh ride. Now, keep in mind, this is a 9-foot kayak, with very light plastic. That thing literally was taking me out from the cove, like dragging me. And I was like, all right, I'm like, I lost it. I couldn't, I set the hook like a little, I didn't know much about bass fishing. So thanks to Fluke Master, now I know a lot. And I, watch a bunch of videos of Fluke Master and kind of setting the hooks and picking baits and all that. But yeah, that's what got me hooked. I was like, I told my wife right there and then, all right, I'm getting a kayak. Let's go to Bass Pro Shop. I didn't have a truck. I had like a Dodge Charger, so I would have to, with no roof racks. Like, I had to put it on foam boards on top of my Dodge Charger and go to lakes like that. And that thing would be shaking. I couldn't go more than 50 miles per hour because I'm afraid that thing was going to fly off. It was hilarious until finally I told my wife, I need a pickup. I'm like, when is this going to stop? Whoever owns, everybody that owns a Dodge Charger, tell you, this car was trash. I hated that car. I loved it when I bought it. It was like the coolest thing, American muscle car. But afterwards, like, good Lord, this is a piece of crap. Um, so finally, with that excuse, I was told, hey, the car's, it took me like, seems like every other month I was spending $1,000 to get it fixed for one thing or another. So finally, I told my wife, like, listen, I'm gonna get a pickup. So I was like, and my wife's always the one to kind of like make sure we don't spend too much. So finally got a pickup, and immediately after I bought a pickup, I was like, all right, I'm selling this kayak, I'm buying an Outback. I bought an Hobie Outback, and then, as they say, the rest is history, man.
Oh, dude.
I don't know how much you want me to keep going. So,
Oh no, dude, you can keep. I'm not gonna stop you. Like, all this is awesome. I do want to ask though, what brought you to Texas, dude? Like, you've been living in Puerto
work.
Rico, fishing on the
So,
coast, and just enjoying life.
oh
Being
no,
a
I love
surfer.
Puerto Rico. I
Yeah.
absolutely love Puerto Rico.
Well, there's not much
It's
surfing in
paradise.
Texas, Like,
Yeah,
that's
no.
what, like,
So here, funny thing is, I used to work for. I'm retired now from American Airlines, but I
Mhm.
used to work for American Airlines back in Puerto Rico, and it was back then in the uh, early '90s and early 2000s. American Airlines in Puerto Rico was huge. And I had a good job there, and then all of a sudden 9/11 happened, and small budget airlines like Spirit, JetBlue, Southwest started coming up, and they were eating a bunch of the mentality flipped. Like,
Mhm.
people were no longer interested in like luxury airlines or paying ticket. They would just wanted cheap uh point A to point B, which
Yeah.
Southwest was one of the first ones. um and so American Airlines started cutting back, cutting back, cutting back, and there was a point where it's like, man, I've been 20 years in this company, and my seniority, because anybody who work at the airlines knows, the day you started, that's your seniority, right? So
Mm.
everything's by seniority.
Mhm.
Whoever has the highest seniority, the longest time in the company, gets to pick up their shift first, gets to pick up their vacation time first. After 20 years, I couldn't get a holiday off. I couldn't get uh for vacation. My shift was like graveyard shift. If you ever worked a graveyard shift at the airport, it's
Oh, yeah.
nothing good. Remember your parents would tell you nothing good happens after midnight. That applies
Yep.
to the airport, bro. No,
Absolutely.
no
Yep.
interaction. If you work at the airport, no interaction after 10 p.m. is going to be pleasant
Oh,
with
hell no.
anybody,
Yep.
And I used to work baggage service, was where people make complaints. So finally, I
Oh.
was like, no, I'm done. And they offered me a transfer to either Miami or Dallas. And then my best friend, who I grew up with, we used to go surfing a lot.
Mhm.
Uh, we took a trip down to Bali, Indonesia, and I surfed and scuba dived over there. Probably the best vacation I've ever had. That was paradise, man. Surfing and scuba diving in Bali, Indonesia, before it exploded to what it is now.
Yeah.
Dude, that was like paradise, man. It was
I I
it was
bet, dude.
sublime. It was
Yeah.
sublime. I don't know what was best, the surfing or the scuba diving. It was amazing. I could talk all night about that trip. But anyway, so um that was my like brother from another mother. And he also was going to transfer out, and he's like, I'm going to Miami. And I was like, I have built up so much debt because they were cutting my hours so much at American Airlines that I couldn't afford to go to Miami, because Miami's way too expensive to live there. So
Yeah.
I was like, I told him I'm going to Dallas, which the rent, I did my research, the rent was like a fraction of I would have paid for rent in Florida, South Florida. So I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
dude, I'm going to Dallas, and I'm just gonna go for a couple of years, make a lot of hours, pay off all my debts, get back steady financially, and then I'll transfer to Miami, because I could have sworn, I was like, I'm not gonna like Dallas. Um, being from Puerto Rico, I thought like South Florida. Yeah, we used to go party. We had free flights, right? Working at the airlines, so we used to go party to South Beach all the time. Dude, like all the
Yes.
like weekends, dude. Like we would do with day trips, like go leave in the morning, come back in the afternoon, or overnight trips. So I knew I would love living in Florida. I just couldn't afford the living expenses back then.
Yeah.
Um, so my mentality was to come to Dallas, work a couple of years, work a bunch of overtime, make some hours, pay off everything, and then move to Florida. I ended up liking Dallas so much, and I didn't. Looking back at it, I realized why. When I was growing up, my dad used to be a huge fan of spaghetti western movies. Those Clint Eastwood movies,
Yeah.
Fistful of
Yeah, dude.
Dollars, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. All those.
Mhm.
I forgot the name of that director. Italian director. But yeah, they were all filmed in Italy. That's what they call it. Western
Spaghetti.
spaghettis.
Yeah.
Western
Spaghetti
spaghettis. That's the
westerns.
word I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Yep.
So I grew up watching all those movies of cowboys and Indians, and so in the back of my mind, when I moved to Dallas, I kind of again combined that the bass fishing and the cowboy culture that I grew up watching. Um, I kind of fell in love with Dallas, and after a few years, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna move to Florida. I love living in Texas. So, and I shouldn't say Dallas. I live actually in Fort Worth, which is more for those that don't know Dallas Fort Worth area. It's kind of like Dallas and Fort Worth are two neighboring cities. Dallas is more modern. Fort Worth is where like it feels like you're in Western times. Like you go to downtown Fort Worth, you'll see people with cowboy hats and jeans. That's where the rodeo is. It's like it's fashionable to go to the stockyards and dress like you were a cowboy. Like people do it all the time.
Yes.
So I don't know. I genuinely fell in love with this type of I don't know, culture here in Dallas or in Texas, I should say. So I decided to stay here, man. And I love it. It's my home now. I don't even think about going back to San Juan. Maybe, when my parents get really old and they need somebody to take care of them, that's conversation that I have with my wife. Like maybe at some point I'll have to move, or maybe, when I'm in my dying bed, be like, hey, send me to Dallas, send me back to Puerto Rico, live out my last few years. But for the most part, I love living here, and it's some getting used to. There's some culture shocks, but at the beginning it was hard because, like I told you, I love scuba diving. I loved surfing. So when I moved here, it's like, what am I gonna do? I also loved, ironically enough, snowboarding, and I would go to Colorado a lot to go snowboard when I lived in Puerto Rico, at least once a year. So now that I live in Dallas, I would go more often because it's only a 2-hour flight versus 6-hour flight from Puerto Rico. And then I fell in love with mountain biking, which I never got a chance to do a lot in Puerto Rico. Then what else? And then bass fishing. And since then, and now hunting. I've gotten to hunting. I love bow hunting.
Yeah.
So the more I spend time here, the more I start gravitating more towards outdoor sports. But when I moved here, it was like, what am I going to do for outdoor sports? Like there's nothing. But then I realized, there is. I just have to understand there's no ocean next to me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to scuba. It's kind of hard to scuba in Texas for sure.
They do have some scuba divings around here for Possum Kingdom, and there's another lake. They have some submerged structures you can scuba dive, and they give scuba diving lessons and all that. But it's like, man, once you scuba dive in Bali, Indonesia at night. I did one night scuba diving, dude. Just you
Wait,
get spoiled.
At night? At night.
Dude, that is the most what's the word I'm looking for? Exhilarating adventures I've ever had.
Exhilarating, yes.
It was amazing. Amazing.
So explain. Sorry, we gotta talk about this for just a second. Explain to me what scuba diving in Bali at night is like.
So if you go to the northeast side of Bali, Indonesia, there's an old World War II. Well, I'm assuming it's World War II, and for those historians, I apologize, but the SS Liberty is sunken right off the coast, like 30 feet from the coast, and it's 35 feet deep. And the thing about it is there's a volcano like the beach is right at the footsteps of a volcano, which I don't think it's active anymore. So the sand is black, the whole sand. And that's what makes it it's like the mecca for scuba diving, especially at night, because the background, like if you go scuba diving any beach, the background is going to be like white sand. This one, the background is pitch black. So you only get to see, like when you go at night, you only get to see what your flashlight is pointing at. So literally, if I'm like you at your stage right now, I can only see your face and I can only see your sweater jackaholics. I can't see, you have no peripheral vision. You can have a whale, you can have a shark right next to you, and you will not see it unless you turn your flashlight. And the cool thing, a lot of people don't know this, but when you scuba dive during the day, the problem is as you get deeper into the water, spectrums of lights get eliminated. Like that's when
Mhm.
you go, like you see underwater videos, it's all green. So
Mhm.
yellow, I think yellow is the first one to go. Then I think red, and then I think green. Why the
I don't know. That's awesome
I
though.
don't know where the
They're-
balloons
yeah,
where those balloons
they're
came up
like
on the
peace or something, and it just
I don't
balloons.
know. That's funny. So, anyways, um, all these colors you start losing them. So at the end, all you see is green. But when you go at night, you have your artificial light with you. So the light is not coming from the sun. So everything that you see at night with a flashlight, it's gonna be the colors that you're not able to see during the day. The colors that you can see in the aquarium
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the light is not being filtered through the
Yes.
sunlight. It's not being filtered. It's actually an artificial light, and it's a handheld light, right?
Mhm.
So you get to see all the vibrant colors of every species. And if in Bali, Indonesia, the thing about it is they say like in that archipelagos of all those islands, if all those islands weren't there, um the days would be shorter than 24 hours. And the reason for that is all those islands kind of like spread and filter the water, the currents that come from one side of the hemisphere to the other. So it slows down all those currents because now instead of just like a highway, those water are spread out through all these thousands of islands and just have to go around and divert all that current. So that holds up the rotation of the earth. Again, that's
Oh,
what I've been told. I'm not a biologist. I could be completely wrong. I might have gotten this information completely wrong. So if you're listening, you're a marine biologist and I'm full of it, just keep in mind that's what I was told when I went there. Because that's what they tell you, when you get a guided tour to go scuba diving, they'll explain everything. But all the minerals and all the plankton and everything makes it like everywhere you point your flashlight, there was
there's something.
some type of sea creature. And it's funny because stop me if I'm going too long on
No,
this.
no, no,
It,
no.
it's funny because we would go in the morning, right?
Mhm.
At dawn, and we will see certain type of fish. So those fish start moving out, and about somewhere at 2 o'clock noon afternoon, another group of different species of fish move in, and at night you see those will leave, and another. So even though you went to the same spot 3 times that day, the species of fish, not all of them, but a lot of them would change.
Mhm.
Like this new species is coming out, those other species is leaving for the night, and it's mesmerizing. It's like, dude, this is crazy. And
Dude,
it's just that that you're pointing your flashlight and you're like, and you're going on inside this warship, going inside through the cabins and going through a door and coming out the window.
mhm.
And you don't know, once you turn into that room and you spot your flashlight, you don't know what the hell is in there. That you
Oh,
get prepared for anything. So it's an exhilarating experience. Anybody that I would recommend it to anybody, but it's not for the faint of heart for sure.
I am in the faint of heart. I can't all just listening to that, it's like making my chest just like holy cow. Because I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of water. I don't know if we've ever talked about this.
Really?
I can't really swim.
I think I don't know, like I am so attracted to water. Like seriously, I have to be in warm water. That's why I thought wasn't gonna last a lot here in Dallas. When I moved here, but I need to be close to water.
Yeah.
Thankfully, lakes over here, kayak fishing, and all that. So
Well, okay, there's like
and rivers too.
there's like a whole thing about the human body and being a
Yeah,
certain percentage of water, and like we automatically, like, there's something preset in our brain that when we are closer to water we are actually calmer, it actually things
yeah.
we think more clearly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's there's a whole energy connection thing to that.
They say for people that have high blood pressure to have like a little small aquarium in your house with fish in
Mhm.
it, and that
Fish
helps
tank.
you lower your. I don't know how. Again, not a medical expert. So any doctors listening to this, if I'm full of it, I'm sorry. That's the information that I got.
Well, I promise you,
Disclaimer.
I promise you, no doctors listen to this. So I think we'll be all right. But no, I totally get it. Yeah, I don't have the science background either, but I go off what I've been told and what I've read over the years, and like that's definitely a truth of mine. Is like when you're near water, you're clear thinking.
Yeah.
You're more clear thinking. It's just something about it.
It
Now, having
it's
said that,
funny. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's funny because this is, I'm sure a lot of people go through this. I can spend the whole day on the water, like from sun up to sundown. And
Mm,
as I'm putting the car in the kayak in the car, sorry, uh,
yep.
or in the truck, you would ask me, how, Armando, if you would have to tell me how much time you think you spend on the water, I would tell you, oh, like 2 hours.
Yep.
Like, to me, it feels like nothing.
Yes.
Like I come home before sun goes up. I get home and it's already at night, and I feel like my day went, like I only spent 2 hours of sunlight, because
Yes.
it just, time just flies, man. Your mind is, even when you're not catching fish, man, you
You're out there.
it's funny because I have the GoPro video, and I have um and sometimes I like to edit videos, and I'll have the camera on one of the cameras is pointing straight at me, one from
Mhm,
the back, one from the front.
mhm.
And it's funny, as like I cringe every time I see it, but like when I'm editing videos, I'm looking to, like, trying to remind myself, when is it that I catch? And so I'll go through the videos, and you see the videos of the camera pointing at my face, or the front, on the front of the kayak, and you
Mhm.
can see me just having, like, mouthing, like, like, I can't hear what I'm saying because I'm speaking in my mind, but you can see my lips moving. You can see my expression in my face, like I'm actually having a real conversation. I
Yep.
don't notice that when I'm on the water, but I do. There so many times where you look at the videos, it's funny. I'm just talking to myself, and maybe I'm crazy, but I just feel like I've get a lot of things in my mind sorted out while I'm on the water. It's
Dude,
hilarious. It's creepy and funny at the same time. Just watching videos of myself, just talking to myself while I'm paddling
this
to a
is
spot, or where I'm not catching anything. What should I do? Whatever. Should I throw this? Should I throw that? Huh? It's
it.
hilarious. It's the
Jumping over
funniest
there. I
thing,
don't know.
man.
Yeah. Dude, no, and you don't ever feel crazy about that. Anybody that tells you that they don't do that, they're probably lying, or
Yeah.
they're, I don't know, stoned out of their minds or something. I don't know. I'm out there. I go out there and I do the same thing. I call it car talk. I do a lot of car
Yeah.
talk when I'm in my kayak because I work construction. I've worked construction for years, and I used to drive like 2 to 4 hours to get to work, and then 2 to 4 hours to get home, every day. And so there's a lot of time that I would spend in a car. Driving, and you talk to yourself after a while. You just kind of you just kind of do, and it becomes like more of a thing, at least for me. So when I'm out on the water, like I'm out there, I'm just car talking. I'm sorting out these conversations that I had recently, like a conversation that I have with my wife that didn't go in my favor or whatever, where I said something that I
They never
shouldn't
do.
have, and then I'm like, oh man, yeah, right.
But you
Right.
know what? Right. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just to say, like, I can get all that sorted out. So when I get off the water, and I am coming home, like I don't realize that I just did a 13-hour day on the water, because me and my buddy Andy, we do it. It's fun. But I don't realize that I just did 13 hours on the water. All I know is I left it was dark, and I came back and it was dark. But I have so much to like sit there and be like, honey, like I was very wrong in this situation. Like let's, like I can sort it out there on the water, get my time, so I totally understand talking to yourself out there, but I also pick lures like crazy. So
Yeah. One thing, and this is, I just had an epiphany just thinking about
Hmm.
this right now as you're talking. One thing that I noticed, like this, usually this, you and I talk, you used to do this, or you still do, maybe a home inspector. I'm a home inspector. I inspect
Mhm.
homes for people that are
Mhm.
buying a new home, and I give them a report on just, the conditions. For those that don't know, we inspect, uh you still doing home inspections, by the way, Dave?
No, I stopped working with that dude. I started 2 businesses, and I'm working on my third one right now.
Oh,
So
nice. Well, for those
yeah.
that don't know what a home inspector is, like when you buy a home, you strongly suggest to get the home inspected. Best, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Best
Yep.
investment that you're gonna do, other than buying the home. This is your best investment to get a
Yep.
home inspection. Like,
Absolutely.
depending on the size of the home, anywhere from 350 to 600, $800, depending on the size of the home, of course. You get an inspection on your plumbing, your electricity, your roof, your foundation, walls, ceilings, attics, um,
Ground
everything, right?
layout, quality, all that kind of
Everything.
stuff. Yep.
All it, heating, cooling, everything.
Yeah.
the appliances, everything. So right now, because of it always happens, like in when we have a change in government, like people
Mhm.
get kind of nervous, so home sales kind of get stuck for this month. So
Yeah.
giving you a long explanation of what I'm trying to get. So let me get to the point. So point is, in the last month, I haven't worked almost at all. Like I haven't had any clients right now, maybe one or two.
Mhm.
So I spend a lot of time at home doing nothing, just cleaning and being like, I guess, like a house
How's-
husband, having
Yeah,
dinner ready
dude.
for the wife. She's right now in this few months, she's the breadwinner, right? And
Yeah.
once summer comes along, then things start
Mhm.
wrapping up for me, and then you'll see me working all the time. But point is, there's a lot of downtime, and I spend that downtime because I've been um dealing with some bronchitis. I
Mhm.
haven't gone out fishing in like a month. And I waste so much of my time on social media watching reels. And this is the thing about bass fishing and kayak bass fishing that I think it's not highlighted enough, man. When I'm all on the water, I'm not feeling my mind full of junk and crap on
Mhm.
social media, because
Mhm.
let's be real, like social media algorithms, most of the time they just feed you crap.
Mhm.
Something that it's meant for you to hit a nerve and cause a reaction out of you. And a lot of times it's either anger or frustration and stuff like that. Um, and that's bass fishing. It's not just a sport. It's dude, the mental health benefit of being out there in a kayak, whether it's bass fishing or whatever species you fish, dude. It cannot be understated. Like I've in my mind, I was like, I can't wait to get out of this like um respiratory infection that I have, so I
Mhm.
can go out there and do some fishing and not spend hours on end just watching social media reels, which have a little to no benefit.
Yeah.
As
Truthful.
far
Truth.
as it's the it's the mental version of fast food chain.
Yeah, it really is.
It's horrible.
Yeah. No, and so I I'll quote this, not quote it, but I'll talk about this as many times as I'm ever allowed to. I listen to a podcast called the Huberman Lab, and it's a neuroscientist. Like he's a doctor, and he basically his specification is what your eyes receive and how your brain interprets it, and mental health, to basically mental physical health through that. And I love the podcast. It's really boring for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
I'm a weirdo and I like it. And he is a big advocate for this, and I think his first episode ever was actually on it. So if anybody's ever interested, just backlog to the first episode, and talks about blue light. And I'm not talking about the blue light that you get off your phone, like all this ooh spooky stuff. It's not necessarily bad, but in the morning when the sun rises,
Mhm.
there's about a good hour or so of that sunrise in the beginning of the sunrise where it's actual like a blue light. It's not necessarily that bright yellow or white that just blinds you. It's
Yeah.
that beginning of the sunrise. And I'm sure you've been out on the kayak many a times to watch the sunrise. Well, that actually interprets into your brain through your eyeballs, and it resets what's called your circadian rhythm, so your awake time and your sleep time. And if you start waking up with the sunrise and just get that 20 minutes of unfiltered blue light, don't look at it through a window. I mean, it's kind of hard right now, it's cold, but during the spring, summer, whatever, don't look at it through a window, don't look at it through anything else. Just go outside, have your coffee, stare in the sun, not stare at the sun, but stare at the sunrise, and put that blue light into your eyes. It will actually reset your circadian rhythm, and you will actually not only get better mental health, but you will get better physical health. You will sleep better. You'll be awake longer. You'll have more energy throughout the day. Like just those little things like that, it changes everything. And so to be out on the kayaks, I love it because that's when I get the best sunrise, because I get
Yeah.
the blue light and the reflection off the water. And dude, I'm telling you, at the end of the day, if I get out there in the morning and get that sunrise, dude, oh dude, I feel the next day I feel like $1,000,000. Like it's so awesome. So
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's just one of those things. Light is very important, but he does say if you start your day by opening up your phone and looking at the light on your phone screen, so a social media or calendar, whatever you feel like looking at, it can actually stunt and jolt your circadian rhythm, and it can throw off not only your energy for the day, but your sleep time as well. So, because you have this stuff called cortisol, which is like receding in your system, like it's a like an endorphin that's receding in your system, because cortisol makes you sleepy, grumpy, all that kind of stuff. And if you jolt it with light from your phone screen versus a gradual light of a sunrise, like it completely jacks all that up. So like when you sit there and stare at your phone all day, like it's just throwing you all over the place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't had that time to really get the sunlight. And not only is the reels, like I do the same thing, dude. I'll get stuck doom scrolling all the time. Not only is it
Yeah.
garbage for my brain, but like the funny thing is, like, you hit it. I don't miss it when I'm out fishing on my kayak.
No, because
I don't.
kayak fishing requires all of your bass fishing in general.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not cat fishing when you're throwing out, some chicken liver and just, waiting something by. But when you're constantly catching and constantly trying to fish, that's why I think bass fishing is such a popular sport, because, compared to other type of fishing where you just throw, like I said, you just throw some chicken liver and just, pull there on the water. And
the good old sink and drink. Yeah.
This one requires you to like move from one spot to another. This didn't work. That should work, or that probably is not going to work, but I'm going to try. Let me think outside the box. It's like that video from that TV show. I can't remember the reels that you see on Instagram where the guy asks him like, do you like fish? Do you fish? And the guy's like, people that don't fish think it's boring. And he goes on this tangent, of why he loves fishing. Like I showed that video to a friend of mine that asked me, it's like, why do you do it? I like it. There's no logical explanation for me to tell you why I'm spending 8 to 10 hours on the water to catch maybe 5 on a good day. There's days where you catch 20 fish, but that's once in a blue moon for most of us, for most mortals. Maybe not Drew Gregory, but
no.
For most of us, catching 5 fish is a blessing. And after spending 8 or 10 hours in the water, just to let them go, it's just the stupidest thing, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do something so unproductive with your day? But it's that, again, it goes back to that mental health. It's like you never know what you're gonna do that's gonna change the outcome. It's always a constant. Your mind is always trying to figure things out, and it never stops. It never stops. And it's one of the health benefits of bass fishing. It's not a wonder why Matt Souders can tell you this more than me, but for retired or active military personnel that have gone on duties, bass fishing and kayak bass fishing has been a lifesaver for them. Like, literally,
absolutely.
Has gotten them out of really dark, mentally dark places in their mind. And, so that's why. I mean, we can go on and on talking about the health benefits, mental health benefits of kayak bass fishing, which is funny because sometimes we get so enraged where we lose a fish and we can't find it, but for whatever reason, that's still healthy.
Yeah, I just posted a video the other day of me losing my
Keeps you
mind
humble.
over a fish. Yeah, dude, I love it. No, there's so many, like you're talking about, the micro adjustments, like all the things you literally have to hyper focus, and your brain has to be firing on all cylinders. It's perfect for people like myself. I don't have military experience whatsoever, but I do got an addictive personality and ADHD. I got 80 of those things. So like I need multi-functioning, multi-firing situations on a regular basis for me to hyper focus. If I'm sitting at home, I will eventually either turn on the TV or pick up my phone because I need constant stimulation. My brain is just like that. And so fishing helps just people like myself. Like if you guys have a busy brain or need an active body, like get out there and do some fishing. And like this kind of brings me into my next thing. So you got not only into bass fishing, you got into downhill mountain biking, right?
Which not is downhill, but mountain biking. Downhill is like,
okay.
Those people go to Europe or South America and just go like 20 miles per hour down a mountain. No, no.
Oh, okay,
I,
okay.
I
I thought
did
you were
go
like,
to I did go up to Moab, Utah, but it's more like trail mountain biking, not downhill
okay,
mountain
okay.
biking. That's an extreme sport that I'm not even close to that level.
Honestly, Armando, when we were talking before, you were talking about mountain biking. I just imagined you being like the Red Bull guys, like hucking off the side of a cliff to land on another cliff. And I was
Oh
like,
no,
dude,
no,
he's nuts. That's
no.
crazy.
I'm
That's so
I'm
funny.
what you call the master of none. Like I'm never great at anything,
Mhm.
but I'm good. You know, I was never great at surfing, but I was good.
Yeah.
I was never great at mountain biking, um, but I was good at it.
Mhm.
So mountain biking is actually like everything that I go. I like to go to like where the mecca is, like right, like bass fishing. You know, I went to for smallmouth bass. I went northeast to do like real smallmouth bass fishing. So here in Texas, obviously, it's like the mecca of largemouth bass fishing. When I did scuba diving, I went to Bali. When I did mountain biking, I went to Moab, Utah. So I always like to go to like the highest level and use it as a measuring stick.
Yeah. I mean, you went snowboarding in Colorado, bro. Like,
Snowboarding
I
Colorado,
live
I love
close to
that.
Colorado. I've
Oh,
never been snowboarding
I
in
love
Colorado.
snowboarding. I
Yeah.
haven't been since the pandemic. So it's funny. I know you asked a question, my bad, but
No,
I'll
it's all good.
just real quick. Last time I was in Vail, Colorado, and
The
the
veil.
day after so we did the 3 days of snowboarding,
Mhm.
and the fourth day we were flying back, and on the news we heard like due to the pandemic, all the um all the parks were closed. So it's
Oh,
like, man, we got out just in time because it was right when the pandemic was starting. So a lot of people had canceled their trip. So we had like Vail was like
empty.
not empty, but we have the whole trails. Like if you ever gone to
Oh.
Vail or Breckenridge on or Silverthorne, you know you have to share. It's like going bass fishing on a tournament. You have to
Mhm.
share the water, so you have to
Mhm.
share the trails. Back then, we didn't. For 3 days, we almost had the trails to ourselves, and then we on the fourth day when we were leaving back, that's when I was like, man, we got in right at the perfect time for snowboarding, and I haven't been back since. So I have to go back.
Now you got to go, dude. You got to
Yeah.
heal up them lungs and take because this winter there's a lot of snow, man.
Yeah.
It's
Well, the
cold and
problem is I haven't had any work. So we were planning on going sometime in November, February, but I told my wife, like, no, I haven't gotten any clients like this year because election year,
yeah,
changing government, it's always
yeah.
at the beginning. So
That and it's also the worst season right now.
yeah,
Just for inspections. People aren't buying
yeah.
homes right after Christmas most of the
But
time.
I interrupted your question. What was it that you want to ask?
Oh
I
no,
apologize.
oh yeah, no. I don't even remember the question, but I have so many others. So we're gonna jump back just a little bit. So you moved here. You moved to Texas when you were 30, and
Yeah.
you still worked at American Airlines. You were single, or you had already met your wife, or how does that
No, I
work
met.
out?
It's funny enough. I met my wife here in Texas, but she was cousins with one of my childhood friends, and she had gone to Puerto Rico. But I never, the days that she went to Puerto Rico, those for whatever reason, those days I didn't hang out with her cousin, which was one of my best childhood friends. It wasn't until I moved to Texas that somebody told me, he's just like, "Oh, introduce me to my wife now." And she told me, hey, she's cousins with Carlos. Carlos Rivera is my childhood friend. I'm like, oh, cool. I grew up with your cousin. So um we didn't it's funny, is me and my wife didn't like each other. I moved when I was 38, I think. Yeah, when I was 38, I moved to Texas. She thought back then, again, I used to go scuba diving. I used to go surfing. I was going a lot to Colorado to do hiking too.
Mhm.
The hike the mountain, like that's the other thing. That's another outdoor sport. And I would like, I'm going to the Colorado Trail when I'm gonna hike where there's mountain lions and when there's bears, and I'm gonna camp at the top of the mountain, and then the next day I'm gonna hike another 15 miles. So again, another example of like I'm gonna go all out. So the point is, I was lean. I was right now I weigh like maybe 210. But
It's
back
the
when I moved
bronchitis.
to
It's the
Dallas,
bronchitis. We'll
yeah,
blame the
no,
bronchitis. Yeah.
it's since I got a motor in my kayak. That's why. But when I moved here, I was like a 185.
Mhm.
I was lean. I was like, and my wife saw like, oh, this pretty boy thinks he's all that, and I thought she was just like this snob that thought she was better than no man was good enough for her. But then we became friends, and 2 years later, we got married.
Dude, that's awesome. I mean, that's the best way to start a relationship is not liking each other. So when you guys get into that situation,
Yeah,
like,
no,
oh,
that's how you know
yeah.
you should. That's the one.
Yep, trust me. All right, hang on one second. I'm gonna throw an ad in here because I have to do that.
Let's do
so
it.
we're gonna just sit back and listen to me yap. What up, dudes and dudettes? I'm sure you're tired of hearing my voice by now, but you're gonna hear it for a little bit longer because this is a shout out to the sponsor of this show, Kayak City. Kayak City has been taking care of me ever since I started getting into a boat and paddling around in the water trying to catch some fish. And when I tell you it is Kayak City, it is literally like a city of kayaks. They have Bonafide, Eddy Line, Feel Free, Hobie, Jackson, Native, New Canoe, Old Town, Wilderness Systems, and so many used kayaks. I stopped trying to count them a long time ago. If you guys are looking for accessories, they have walls and walls and walls of accessories. They have one wall dedicated specifically to Yak Attack, and it is a massive wall. Kayak City is your #1 Yak Attack dealer here in Northern California. If you want to know where it is, stop by at 7812 Auburn Boulevard, Citrus Heights, CA. Roll through, say what up to James, Troy, Eric, Scott. Tell them Dave says what's up and tell them I sent you there. Thanks for listening. There it is.
There it is. I like it.
Thanks, man. I got to throw that in there real quick. So, okay. You're married, 30s, Texas, loving life. Do you have brothers, sisters? Like,
I have two sisters. They actually both live in Austin. So my older sister lived in Austin before I moved here, but we were estranged. Like we were a few years. We didn't talk to each other. We didn't get along for a couple of years. Then I ran into her at a beer fest. She lived like 20 minutes from where I live, but even then we wouldn't talk to each other. And then we ran into each other at a Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And I met her husband, which her second husband, which I hadn't met until I ran into her. And we kind of like, clear the air and stuff like that. So she moved to Austin, and then my youngest sister, I talked her into moving to Texas because again, she loves Puerto Rico. She surfs too, and she just loves island life. And she was really reluctant to move to United States. But to find a job in Puerto Rico, she has a bachelor's degree. And she was doing jobs stocking for a Walmart company or something like that. And for like minimum salary wage. And I told her, you got to move to Dallas. You got to, I told what everybody had told me before. A lot of my friends from Puerto Rico, when American Airlines started downsizing, had already moved to Dallas. And all of them told me the same thing. It's like, dude, you're going to be reluctant to do it first. But once you're here, you're going to be like, why didn't I do this years ago? I would have gotten ahead in life so much soon if I would have done this move years ago. And it was, man. Once I moved here and I started, everything financially started working out for me, I was like, dude, why didn't I do this? Because that's the thing. You don't only get paid more here. Mm-hmm. Everything across the board is cheaper in that, like way cheaper living in Texas than it is living in Puerto Rico. So you earn more money, plus cost of living is a lot cheaper. So it's like, yeah, like even if you make the same amount of money on a yearly basis, just the cost of living, the difference, it's well worth moving here. So she moved here, and then I remember she interviewed for like 2 jobs, and she called me crying. She had like an anxiety attack. I'm like, what's going on? What happened? It's like, I have to choose between 2 jobs. I'm like, okay, why are you crying? It's like, she's like, she was like happy and like an anxiety attack at the same time. Like, I've never, like, she was in her mid-30s. It's like, I've never, like, usually I had to beg to get a job as stock clerk, and here I got a job. Now she does translation for, I think, for a hospital or something like that. Can't remember, but used to work for a veterinary technician, which is what she studied in college. So she never had that, okay, you have multiple job offers, which one do you want? So man, I told her, like, I told you, should have done this before. So both of my sisters, making a long story out of a question, I apologize. No. They both live in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Yeah, dude. That's okay. So you got your sisters here and your parents are still in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Dad still fishes, all that kind of stuff.
No, dad only took me fishing just
Just boy time.
No, my dad
Yeah.
is what he does is gym. He's like you can my dad's schedule, you can set a timer on my dad's schedule. Like he'll get up at this time. I don't know how he reads the newspaper now, but he will literally go buy a newspaper, like the carbon and paper,
Mhm.
sit on the hammock next to the pool in a Caribbean island, read the newspaper, get up, have lunch at the exact same time. My dad is so funny. And again, I'm making the story much more than I
No,
needed to
no, it's
make. But
good, dude.
it's funny. Like we would watch NBA games. He's a huge NBA fan. So
Yeah.
he would, at a certain time, and he doesn't even look at the clock. It just come naturally. You can set a clock by him. Like he would get up, go to the fridge, get his glass of like he's a man's man. Like he drinks beer when he's eating. Like I drink beer to socialize, but I don't drink
Mhm.
beer when I'm at home eating.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
every day at dinner time, he get his big plate of Puerto Rican food and a beer. Like he drinks beer like every day. It's like he drink it like a man does. Back it's like like old school,
Hell
old
yeah.
school.
Yep.
So, but at night he will start the game by somewhere like the fourth quarter. He will get up, put his lemon juice in one of his glass mugs he used for beer, put it in the freezer, sit down, and he knew the exact moment. It's hilarious to me. I still laugh at this. He knows the exact moment when that icy film like develops on top of his lemonade, but the
Mhm.
lemonade is still hasn't completely frozen, just the top, like a lake.
Yep.
He
Yep.
knows that he has it timed to a science. Like he gets up, he gets it out, and it's just perfect. You'll see him with a little like spoon and break the ice on the top and drink the lemonade like ice cold. It's hilarious. Like I
That's
don't know, like
awesome.
I would completely. I would have you put me if I put my any type of drink in the freezer, I'm gonna forget about it, and I'm not gonna remember the 3 days later. Oh, have a a a block of ice now in the no. He would get up at the exact time where that just freezes on the top, but it hasn't completely frozen, so you can still it's still kind of slushy and watery. It's hilarious. So he's never been an outdoor person, but what he does is gym regularly. Like
Okay.
everybody at the gym knows him.
That-
Like he's been
That's
going to the gym all his life, 3 times a week at
that's
the
awesome.
same
So,
time.
I really think that I don't know about our generation, but I know like your dad's generation and my dad's generation are pretty much the same or similar generations. It's like their life is balanced by routine.
Yep.
And I love it. I envy it because I wish I could have that routine. I've tried.
Oh, I can't.
And yeah, I am so yeah, I can't do it, man. And I don't see it happening in any other generations right now. But that it's just it's something I envy about the older generation. It's like the way they could balance their life around a routine. They didn't
Dude.
need clocks. They didn't need they had clocks, but they didn't like need to know anything. They would read it in the paper. They would go about their day. They had their set things that they would always do. And at the end of the day, you knew like you could live your life by their routine. It was awesome.
It's funny because it's his generation and he himself, like he's why his life revolves is everything's on schedule on doing Monday things. Go to the gasoline store, pick up the newspaper, sit down, lay down in the hammock, read the newspaper, take a nap, lunch, go sit down, watch a game, grab his bowl of peanuts, get up, put the lemonade on the freezer, get up exactly the right time, take the lemon out, sit down, finish the game. Like it's like everything is set like if anything, if you put your watch and he does it every time at 5 o'clock, and then one day you notice it's 5:05, your watch is wrong. You have to fix your watch like that. He's not off his timer. Your watch is off his timer. And me, I'm the complete opposite. I can never, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but I can never set my life around doing a schedule around doing Monday things. Like I have to go to work. Yeah, it's nothing, you can't do anything about that. You have to work, right? But like to me right now, I need to get a haircut. I should have gotten a haircut a week ago. But to me, it's like I'll put up like the schedule. Okay, I'm gonna get a haircut. I get up, whether it's great for fishing, I'm going fishing. or
Yeah.
somebody invited me, hey, you want to grab a couple of beers? Let's go.
Yep.
Like everything, like anything Monday activities, responsibilities that I have to do,
Mhm.
I'll do it as long as it doesn't interfere with me having fun. Like, and
Gotcha.
my dad
Yeah.
is different. My dad's like everything is on, every Monday activity is on a schedule, and I'll have fun or relax when I'm done with all of this at
Yep.
the allotted time slot, you know,
Yes. Yes.
that I have it designed for, that I picked. Me, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this all day. All of a sudden, hey, you want to go fishing? Screw my plans. I'm going fishing, or I'm going day drinking, or I'm going
Yep.
mountain biking, or I just refuse to set my schedule. Like right now, if you look at me, I should have gotten a haircut a long time ago, but I haven't because I had other things came up that were more fun than getting a haircut. So
Yeah, dude. And hey, by the way, the beard's looking epic. Loving it, dude.
I need to get my
Yeah.
beard trimmed too. That's
No,
another
no,
one.
keep that thing. Let that thing grow, bro.
Oh
Like, it
yeah,
looks
no,
so
I'm
good in a
letting it grow,
beard.
but
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
neat, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I get you. Like, clean it up a little bit. Yeah. So, speaking of that, where does fishing like fall? Like, it obviously falls as a high priority to you, but where does fishing fall for you? Like, everybody has like we kind of touched on it a little bit. Everybody has like their own experience on the water. Some people go out, they just go out to catch some fish and come back, and that's it, and like they're having a great day. But do you is fishing more for you than just going out and catching a couple fish? Like, do you actually get time to like we were talking about, like kind of mentally reset or
Oh
emotionally
yeah,
like
yeah, no, for
open up
sure.
and just
Like it's not
relax?
even about fishing. I
Yeah.
mean, tournament fishing and days of practice it is, but for the most part, it's the adventure of trying to figure it out. Like, and I've said this on the podcast many of times, but I can never be, and I don't criticize people that go to the same honey hole and keep catching tons of fish and big fish. Because I get it. Like, if you have a busy life, you have kids, you have long work days, and you only have this little pocket of time within your responsibilities to go fishing. By all means, go where you will know where you're gonna catch them, where the bite is predictable, and have fun. So I don't judge people when they do that. Like everybody's different. Who am I to judge if you're gonna keep going every week to the same honey hole to catch the same fish? Dude, fishing is fishing. Have fun.
Mhm.
Nothing can substitute it. But for me, because I am we even working at American Airlines, schedule is pretty flexible. Like you could drop shifts or pick up shifts. You can have somebody work for you, so they're pretty flexible, right? And even now in my own business, it's pretty flexible. So I never like to burn a spot. Like we're making plans to go to this lake that's on the schedule for the kayak adventure series. Um, and
Paris one?
every time I go to a lake, I have an amazing day, but I haven't gone in almost a year. And the reason why I don't go is because I don't want my growth as an angler to get stagnant, like or plateau. Like if I'm always going to go to the same place where I know where they are and I know what they're gonna bite on, every now and then I'll go to like through a bad streak where I'm not catching enough. Um, and thankfully I've never been great at bass fishing, but I've gone good enough where it very rarely, maybe happens once a year that I'll get skunked. But for the most part, I'll catch one or two fish. Like on my worst day, I'm going to catch at least one fish. Right? Very rarely do I get skunked. Which when I started, dude, I got skunked the first 10 times I went out fishing, and that was fishing the whole day.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yep.
and even when I started catching fish, it was like maybe one a week,
Yeah.
maybe one every 2 weeks. Now it's like every time I go fishing, I'll usually catch five, but at least one. Right. So it's because I've always tried to go to like lakes that either I don't know or I struggle with. Because I want to get good at it.
Yeah.
So every now and then when I feel like, man, I need to pick me up, then I'll go to that, one or two honey holes that I know I'm going to catch and I know I'm going to have an epic day.
Yeah.
But I don't like to go to those places a lot because then I get bored. And then if I keep doing that, I'm going to get bored and I'm going to stop doing this because there's no challenge. My mind, the way that I'm wired, I need challenges in my life, mentally or physically. I've never been athletic. It took the first couple of times that I went surfing, it took the life out of me. There were times where I remember one time I got wiped out so bad. Then when I came out shaking, my buddy was like, "Dude, are you okay? You are shaking." Like, and I was like, "Dude, I have never felt the power of a wave that left me in a place so vulnerable that I was like, I may just die here." And it's like, "You want to take a break?" Like, hell no, I'm going out there. Like, I want, like, my mind is wired for challenge, Mountain biking, when I started mountain biking, dude, I would have the worst falls. Like, I'd be, fall on a thorn bush and I'd be all cut. I have poison ivy all over my neck, my arms. And my wife's like, "Why don't you stop doing this?" It's like, no, I want this because I'm not athletic at all. Like, I'm as athletic as a sea cucumber. Like, literally, I have no athletic ability at all. I have two left feet. I'm all thumbs. I can't make a free throw. I can't hit a ball that's more than 20 miles per hour. So physical and mental challenges, that's what keeps me going. Just trying to keep proving to myself, proving to myself that I can do it. So bass fishing is like, I never want to feel like I've won over bass fishing, right? Like, I've always wanted to do, like, keep going. So a lot of times I'll just go to lakes that I there's a good chance I'm going to get skunked. So after saying all this, the answer to your question is no. It's not just about catching fish. It's more than that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it almost sounds like so. Don't take this the wrong way, because I'll get to the other half in the second. But it sounds like you're always in a competition, and it's the most healthy
with myself
competition. Yes, you are trying to be better. You're a better you than you were yesterday. You were constantly taking on challenges.
I judge tournaments.
Conquer it.
I judge tournaments results that I partake on, not what place that I gotten, but against the best version of myself. Like, the highest placement I got on the national trail is 22nd. I was in Lake Dardanelle. Last year, at the end of the year, I finished the year fishing at Cado, and I ended up 47th. And that's the proudest I've ever been on a national. So it's like twice as far down.
Yeah.
Like 22nd to 47, but I feel like 47th was a huge accomplishment for me. Awesome. So I never judge it on who I'm competing against. It's just the best version of myself.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. That's super healthy. Like, I love that. Now, I am going to say this. When I started kayak fishing, like, you and me had a conversation. I think it was actually on your podcast. We had talked about this because I asked you if there was any advice. You're all, go fish water you're not familiar with. And I was like, okay. So for the first few months, I was like just fishing the same couple spots over and over and over again, because I needed to get used to kayaks. Yeah. I needed to get used to being on the water. I have a huge fear that I don't really talk to a lot of people about, but basically my first hour to 2 hours on the water is one long adrenaline anxiety attack, like adrenaline rush anxiety attack, because I cannot swim. Like, I swim like a stone. So the only thing saving me from certain death is a good buoyant kayak and a great PFD. Yeah. So when I'm out there, I'm literally, if you ever walk along the edge of a tall building with no railing and look down, that's what it's like standing in a kayak for me. So, like, I had to get through that for like the first, I don't know, a few months of being in a kayak, like trying to figure it out. And so I would fish the same familiar spots over and over again. Sure, I could pattern the fish fine. I knew what the fish were doing. I wasn't worried about the fish. I was worried about, like, my body mechanics. What can this kayak take? How can I turn? How can I sit? And but then your voice kept popping in my head, like, you need to go fish water that you're not familiar with. You need to go check out new bodies of water, fish something different, challenge yourself. And so I immediately, like, once I was comfortable enough in my kayak, I started doing it. There's been a few trips that I've definitely scared the lights out of myself, but then there's other trips where, dude, I have had so much fun just opening my mind and exploring some new body of water. Sure, I may only caught a couple dinks or something, but the point was I got out there and I did something that was totally out of my comfort zone, and I had no clue what I was doing. I have this graph in front of me. I still don't know how to read it, and all I know is I'm throwing lures in the water, doing what I'm confident doing, and now I'm catching fish in, like, a place that I've never been before. Like, it's super exciting. So thank you for those words, because those words rang in my head when I was new to kayak fishing, like, trying to figure this out. So I appreciate you for it, because your personal challenge helped me progress as an angler faster than I would have on my own. So
Oh
thank
man,
you.
I'm glad. I'm glad at least the podcast served this purpose for at least one person.
Speaking of which, let's talk about this. So you're no longer at American Airlines. You're now a
Home
home
inspector.
inspector, right? You're self-employed. It's solid line of work, dude. I had a great time doing it. It is a solid line of work. What brought you into the podcast idea? Like what drove you to be like, you know what? I think I need to do a podcast.
So my closest friends that I used to go kayak fishing with, one of them, like I mentioned, the one who introduced me to kayak fishing, Nulfo.
Mhm.
He got two kids, so he's moved on to a boat, which makes sense. It's easier to get the kids on the water with a boat and worrying
Yeah.
about getting a kayak flip.
Yeah.
And then my other buddies, life got in the way, and they either sold their kayak or they don't do kayak fishing anymore. So I really struggled when I'm on the water. Like I had to watch Gene Jensen's Fluke Master videos, and that helped a lot. But I you can only get so much. You watch a video, but you have questions, right? And
Yeah.
whether it's Gene, whether it's Greg Blanchard, whether it's Alex Rudd, um, Tackle Talk Podcast, Andrew Hayes, they're not going to be answering every one of your questions. They're
Mhm.
just going to give you the general information, right? Tactical
Right.
Bassing, another one.
Right.
Wired to Fish. I keep coming up with those names. But so I wanted to get to talk about bass fishing because I needed more information. So it's hard to just call somebody you don't know. It says, hey man, how am I used to email Fluke Master Gene Jensen, but he doesn't know me. And a lot of
Yeah.
times he would be like, dude, I'll get back to you later. Like, I'm busy. But he
Yeah.
was always nice. He would always answer my questions, like, hey, Fluke, I saw this video. I have this question about this, and that, blah, blah, blah. So, and I'm always grateful for Fluke Master, Gene Jensen, for doing that. But I wanted to get people so I can talk about it. And then my wife introduced me to True Crime Podcast. That's what she would
Oh
listen
yeah.
to us. I didn't even know what a podcast
Yeah.
was.
Me
I had
neither.
no idea. I just
Yeah.
like, no. And then I was like, oh, is that what Joe Rogan is doing right now? Is that what it's called? The podcast? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then I started looking for podcasts. Paddle and Fin came up, Kayak Bass Nation came up, Yak Legion, which was hosted by Brad Hicks, if I remember correctly. Back then, that's back. I asked Brad Hicks about that. He used to,
I'm gonna
I
write
think he
that
used
down.
to be the host of Jack Legion. I think it was the name of it. So that gave me the idea of actually, okay, so if I make a podcast, I can get. But back then, I'm sorry, back then, kayak bass fishing was still an unknown sport.
Mhm.
Bassmaster kayak series didn't exist yet. It was just KBF, local regional trails, and Hobie BOS was just starting. So at mass, I would, go to Turny X, look at sometimes the email for a certain angler was there, or I would email tournament directors, or I would get into social media and email, or not email, DM a couple of people. And that's what got me into doing the podcast. Just the chance to talk to people that love the sport. And it was not really to help out other people, though I wanted the information to be helpful to other people, but it was more about me getting somebody to talk to me about kayak bass fishing and teach me.
Mhm.
So, and a lot of these people back then, they still are looking for sponsors. So, getting their name out, getting the word out about the sport helped out. And most of those social media content creators and tournament anglers were more than happy to help you because they wanted, back then, Russ Snyder, Christian Fisher, Guillermo Gonzalez, they want the sport to grow because the more the sports grows, if you make a livelihood out of it, whether through social media or whether through tournaments, you make money by getting more people. The more people that are into it, the more uh, tournament prizes. Like, the bigger the tournament prizes, the more followers you're gonna get, the more
Mhm.
sponsors you're gonna get. So still today, everybody was just loves. You tell them, hey, you want to come to a podcast? For the most part, you'll get people. Some of those is like, you can tell they're not for the wrong reasons. I don't want to get on the soapbox, but there were a couple of them even that I was like, dude, I am not following you. They were like so condescending when you would ask them, like, oh, who are you? And not that my issue was like they would like blow you off or like no whatever, no thank you, or not interested. Are you giving compensation for me to be on your podcast? I'm like, dude, you have 2,000 followers on social media. It's not like you're John B. And
Yeah,
even
no, that
then I wouldn't pay.
yeah, no, that's real.
Um
That's a real thing. I've
yeah.
experienced that recently. That's a real
So
thing.
it's like, yeah, dude. And sure enough, and lesson for anybody that does social media or sending a podcast, those content creators, I know I remember two out of the top of my head. They're no longer doing content creation. Maybe they moved on to something better. Who knows?
Yeah.
And good for them. I don't wish them ill uh fate, I don't,
Yeah,
just because you didn't want to come on my podcast, I'm not gonna get all in my feelings and wish you the worst.
yeah,
But the attitude and the kind of dismissive attitude that I can tell, they're usually, if you're not in touch with the community, your social media is not going to go that far.
yeah,
And sure enough, they're not doing social media anymore. So
yeah. People, it doesn't matter what the industry is. People weed themselves out.
yeah.
It just happens over time. It's just the way it goes for sure. But I was just curious.
As the guys at Dark Horse Tackle, they'll tell you.
I don't know why they like me.
No, but I'm saying where Dark Horse Tackle used to be before now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Josh Shidwood took over. It seems like whoever was starting it wasn't there for the right reason. Now you see Zach and Josh just doing it for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
And seeing it, now it's becoming what it should have become. And credit to those two dudes, great dudes.
Yeah, I don't know what that dude was thinking. He's got like dogs and whatever. I don't know what's going on. I had to, let that go for sure. We all did.
Yep.
It was a wild time for there.
Yep.
It was kind of fun. It was fun to watch. Like you said, there's a group chat, so it's like, dude, memories from the message board. Oh,
yeah.
But yeah, no. So you got into kayak fishing or into podcasting basically to receive more information and be able to like communicate with your community. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's super awesome. And you started at Paddle and Fin, and then you had to.
No, I started by myself, and then I started interviewing hosts of the Paddle and Fin. I think Brad Hicks was one of my first ones. I had Dan Perry, I had Susie Roloff. So the one on Susie Roloff, one of my favorite episodes, Susie talked openly about her depression and how bass fishing kind of helped her. And so then I had trying to remember if Brian was ever on the podcast before.
Brian
so
Schiller?
Brian at least heard that podcast. Brian was the founder of Paddle and Fin. And I think I had him on the podcast before I went to Paddle and Fin, but he commended me. He's like, dude, that episode was really good. I like what you're doing. So then he, I was working one day and I had his phone number saved, and I see him calling me, and I'm like, I bet he's going to invite me to join Paddle and Fin. I was so excited about it. Yeah. It's still a great opportunity. I've left with no ill feelings. Like it was just, it was just time to move on, but no, not because of any bad blood or anything bad. Nothing. We left on great terms. Me, Brad, Matt, Sean, Daniel, and Brian and Susie, we all left on good terms. It was nothing. It was just time to move on and do my own thing.
Dude, yeah, no, and that I commend you for that, because like people have to grow. Like you have to grow, and I like Paddle and Fin. I got nothing against Paddle and Fin. Like those were one of the earlier podcasts that I listened to as well, because I didn't know much about fishing and I had a lot of time in the car, saying you can't watch YouTube and drive in traffic. Well, you can, but you're going to hit a lot of people. It just happens. So I would, do a lot of fishing podcasts, learning about fishing, like kind of like what you did, except for I didn't have any way to communicate or create. I didn't think about ever doing a podcast. In fact, I didn't even think about doing a podcast until Matt Souders brought it up to me. He's all,
he actually, so that week I was gonna call you to see if you wanted to come to the podcast, either be my host or have your own show. And then you come with the announcement, like, damn it, Brad beat me to it.
Yeah, no,
because I love you. I always said it, you'd be a great podcast host.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I hope I'm not letting you down. But yeah, dude, I really want to know, like, so starting, your own podcast, getting a part of a group, then growing and starting your own like podcast series, because you have two podcasts, right? It's one that's yours and one that's Dan Perry's is the other one on the
Well,
Wednesdays,
Dan
right?
Dan retired from doing podcasts. His
Okay.
kid's now grown up and he's has
Nice.
hockey practice and all that. So
Okay.
Kurt Smith took over and it's the Advanced Kayak Angler, and
Yes.
that's more of a teaching
Okay.
podcast. Learning how to on specific baits, specific scenarios, specific type of waters, specific seasons, and stuff like that. It's more of
No.
an instructional video on how to
Yeah.
bass
Yeah.
fish,
No,
kayak bass fish.
it's there's some juice in there for sure. I love it.
Yeah.
But I want to know how it has developed you as a person in that growth period.
Oh,
From, like,
dude, understanding like me as a person, not an angler. Just
yeah,
as a
yeah, you
person.
as a person,
Oh,
not an
dude,
angler.
understanding conversation. Like, first of all, you make lifelong friends and people that are good influence for you. Guillermo Gonzalez has been a great influence to me. The guy's amazing, dude, and getting to know him personally, and having him on the podcast, and then sharing the water with him on tournaments. It's one of those connections where you're like, man, I feel like I'm a better person
Yeah.
because I get to talk to this person. And I try to be, it's kind of like pay for it. I try to be a good influence. Not that I want to be like, oh, kind of like flute master, teach you how to fish, because I'm not that great at, but just be a good influence on people. Like people, if I talk to you on the water, on the podcast, on the street, I want it to be a pleasant conversation. um and I've kind of learned through that, life is short. We can't spend it arguing and fighting over everything and being self-centered and why me and stuff like that. So talking to people from different trades, like talking to Matt Souders, going through what he went through, adjusting from life of service to plugging back to civilian life. Like that was really hard for him. That I'd opened my eyes, and I had a lot of feedback from that. Um, from people that listened to the podcast. They were like, dude, that episode that helped them. So that's something I cannot understand. I can't relate because I've never been in Iraq or I've never been in Vietnam. I don't know what it is to watch, somebody die in front of you, or actually, you know, taking a life. One other one that was one of my favorite was Frank Twiggy Reed. This guy was an airman. Like he would like parachute out of a plane into the middle of a war zone in Iraq, and then
Oh.
you know do whatever it is that he was assigned to do and try to get out
Mhm.
best way he can to get to survive.
Yep.
And then going from that to living, to being a drug addict and living underneath a bridge, and then his road back and how kayak fishing helped them. Those things, Bobby Big Gun, I forgot his last name, another one that great dude from Florida. His wife went through cancer and he lost everything. Like he had to sell the house, sell everything to help, heal and get the treatment that his wife needed. And thankfully she survived. But hearing his story, that's another one that I got a lot of feedback on from you having marrying the love of your life to almost coming to a point where you're about to lose her and having to sell everything you own, the clothes literally off your back to pay for whatever treatment. And then thankfully she survived, and then coming back and rebuilding your life, all those things. Jason Borofka with what his son is going through, I think one of the rarest disease that any infant has been diagnosed. I think there's literally like less than 10 people in the world that have been that are presently diagnosed with that disease, and most of them don't survive. All those talking to all those people, bringing those stories not just to myself but for my listeners, dude, it's amazing. I think it's you have to get out of your comfort zone every now and then. It's just like not just in bass fishing, like to get better,
Yeah.
but just as a person, you have to, how are you gonna grow if you don't know what the other half of the world lives or goes through, right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
learning from Matt what he went through, from Frank, from Jason Borofka, from so many others that I've found on the podcast, from Susie Roloff. It's enlightened my life and made me be more. What's the word I'm looking for? Not simp. It's not
Empathetic.
empathy. Empathetic.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Empathetic.
it's late for me here.
No, it's all good. I'm
Empathetic
sorry.
to
Yeah.
my fellow human beings is
Mhm.
it's probably the most important thing about having the podcast. I
Yeah.
would say so. It's to me, it has transcended from just having a podcast talking about bass fishing to having human connections and being a better person for it. Because now I learned what other people go through that I have no idea.
You were looking how to throw a lure, and you got emotional growth out of it. You know,
Yeah,
they call that
intellectual too. Yeah, like
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, for sure. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, you're gonna learn a lot, but like to grow emotionally as like a man, like it sometimes this day and age it's difficult to grow emotionally as a male. You know, it doesn't matter who you are because you're either told that you don't feel, you're not supposed to feel, and you need to sit over there and you need to grin and bear it,
yeah,
or you get the exact opposite where they want you to give like have a safe space and you know feel free to wear a dress or what you know like people have like there's two polar opposites and there's
yeah,
no healthy balance that comes right down the middle, and I think you hit it with being empathetic to the people around you. Like you've learned how to open your heart to another human being, which is like that's the biggest emotional growth any human could ever have. So that's awesome,
yeah.
dude. I love that. Like I love that experience for you. That's so rad. That's you know, I had this
We still
idea.
say rad. Yeah, you're from California.
I'm
Forget
42. You know, I say a lot of stupid stuff.
it. I didn't know rad was still a thing. You see?
It's not. I'm going to tell you right now. I live in California. It's totally not.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Rad.
Dude. Yeah. And so the idea that I even like when Matt had said something about like doing a podcast, I'm like, I mean, I'll talk about fishing, but I don't really want to talk about fishing. Like I want like people that I've been interested and like yourself, like you've been vulnerable on your show many a times. Just like
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying you're sitting there crying your eyes out, but you're vulnerable. Like you're very open about
Man.
who you are in your life. And so like all that stuff to me is just so interesting. Like I want to know more about like you, like we're talking about like your emotional growth and like what's happened like just by you having a podcast and being able to be living in Dallas, Texas. You've mended a relationship with your sister. Like you guys, your family lives near you now. Like, dude,
Yeah.
the blessings that you've been able to go through lately is awesome, dude.
Yeah. It's funny. I think 2 times I've kind of like got a lump in my throat on the podcast. One was Jason Borofka.
Yeah.
When he was talking, Joe McElroy had donated his winnings. I think he won first place on I think one of the second Bassmaster Kayak Series National Championship. That I think it was the first one you needed to qualify. Because Bassmaster Kayak Series, I think they had one where anybody could sign up, and they topped it off at $250. That's where Chad Hoover was on that one, Gene Jason, and a lot of people. I think Greg Blanchard was on that one too. And then the following year, I think you had to qualify for it or something like that. But I think he might have. I think Joe McElroy won either the first or second one that you needed to qualify for. It was something like $25,000, something like that. And he donated all the winnings to Jason Borofka, which he got into the top 10. So Jason Borofka got into the top 10. And that was his goal because he wanted to put the word out about what his son is going through. So people could help, because saving his son means saving the life might mean saving the life for maybe a handful of other kids that have the same diagnosed with the same disease that his son was diagnosed, and they have no cure. They have very little information about it. So after that, Kayak Bass Nation, for all the crap that Kayak Bass Nation gets, whether fair or unfair, they did made a monthly online tournament for 1 month, and then they made an auction. And dude, they raised, I think, something like $70,000.
Holy yeah.
And I was part of that. I got some of my sponsors, Douglas Rod, to donate a rod for that. I told them, I need you to donate a rod for this. I want to help this, And then after all that, was said, I had Jason Borofka on the podcast to talk about how he, about not just the tournament, but how he felt, when Joe Mackerel donated the winnings, and when um Kayak Bass Nation, did all that to help him, and how much money they raised. Dude, he just started balling. I was like, I was trying. I didn't know what to do at
Yeah.
that point, because I didn't want him to feel embarrassed, So I needed to continue kind of the show, but at the same time, I had a lump in my throat. I could hardly speak. Um, so that was probably one that's always sticks to me. That moment, I was like, man, I never thought I'd be almost here at the verge of tears, having being a podcast host. So
Yeah, dude, it's super real.
yeah.
I don't think I hit you up about it, but I did hit up and I know I hit up Bobby and a couple other people just randomly, but I'm like, I asked them a question. I said, "Hey, have you ever had a guest on?" And then afterwards, just the story and their life and how they are now, like just emotionally just touch you in a way where you just shed some tears when the episode was done. Cause like I have. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And
Frank
that
Triggy read story also
that
afterwards.
that's kind of the whole point, is like I feel like a lot. I'm not your show so much. I actually really love listening to your show. I try and jump
Don't
on the
be
live
lying.
when I
It
can, for
sucks.
sure.
It sucks. Don't lie.
Yeah, it totally sucks. I love listening to it. No, like because you ask questions that people don't normally ask, man. Like you hit home on questions, and I love it. It's like the stuff that I'm curious about. Like you have, it's almost like you read my mind, or you like I write you a script and you just ask questions because it's awesome. But what I was saying is your point of questioning or your point of perspective when it comes to these anglers is similar to mine. Like I'd love to hear about your accolades and I love to hear about your fishing, but I want to know more about you as a person. Like
No.
I want to know about you, because I mean, if I want to know about somebody's fishing experience or like their life in fishing, like I could turn on YouTube, I could listen to multiple podcasts, and I could sit there and listen about all the awards they won. But I want to know, like, dude, you win all these awards, but like how's home? Like, how's life today, dude? Like, what is your life looking like outside of fishing? Like, how are you feeling? Like, what is going on with you? Like, because honestly, some days, dude, I'm not great. I'm not gonna lie. And like, you can ask Matt, Brad, anybody that I talk to on a regular basis. Like, I don't have great. I'm not. My days aren't always full of butterflies and rainbows, dude. Like, we all go through struggles, and that's the stuff that I really feel like is missing in a lot of this stuff. And that's why when they said try a podcast out, I'm like, this is the direction I want to go. Like, I want to know more about the person. I want to know, like, when you're hitting like a struggle on the water or off the water, like, what is your go-to? How do you respond to that? Like, for me, when I argue with my wife, like, I feel like I need to be right all the time. And so like I have to take, yeah. And you're married, and like, we're not right ever. It doesn't matter if it doesn't even matter if we really are right. We're not going to be right. But I have this drive to be right because I'm very conflict oriented. So I have to like push my opinion, and then I have to go back later and I have to make this huge amends and like apologize to her and be like, look, like I just wanted to drive the point home because I felt like I needed to be right and I didn't hear you and I wasn't listening,
Yeah.
that's my struggles. I'm always conflict oriented. I'm ready to push. And so I'm not going to ask you when was the last fight with your wife by any means, but what do you do? Like, how do you, because you are very much like, you appreciate a good challenge and you are always ready to take it on. How do you take that into your regular life outside of mountain biking and fishing and stuff like that?
You asked me on that question. What was the question?
Okay. Okay. So how do you address conflict in your regular life? Like,
okay. No, it's I try to, one thing that I've always strived on is not being self-centered. Like, always, even when I feel I'm right, I always, give my, not to say that I doubt myself, but to say like, what if I'm wrong? Like, kind of thing. Because I think that's very important. Sometimes we think we're right, if we're not looking at it from this same perspective as the other person, and sometimes you're both right or you're both wrong, and not just in husband and wife situations. But sometimes you may be right, but the way you communicated was wrong, stuff like that. Recently, I was actually, that's funny because on Sunday I had my adopted son, Roger. Roger used to live with us for like uh lived with us a couple of times.
Mhm.
Long story short, his mom couldn't take care of him, so me and my wife stepped in before he got sent to a foster home. And when he was 12 years old, so he lived with us for a little bit. Now he's 18. He's back with his mom, and everything's great. But Sunday he came to the house, and I was asking about something. I'm not going to go into details, but it was
Mhm.
like, hey, what happened with this? And he kind of gave me a nonchalant explanation for it. And I was like so upset at the lack of maturity in his decision making. And I didn't curse at him because I've never been cursed. Like I'm not. I I'm mature enough to be able to hold emotionally my rings where I don't attack. Like
Mhm.
me and my wife have never in 12 years of marriage this year have never screamed or insulted at each other. That doesn't mean we don't argue, but
Mhm.
my personality is a personality. It never escalated to calling names and or saying hurtful things.
Mhm.
Sometimes we say the truth about how we feel, and that may be hurtful, but not intentionally trying to be
Yeah.
hurtful. So
Yeah.
I was really disappointed with some of the decisions he took, and I just went off on him without cursing at him, without. But I told him like, dude, you are just like that is a very immature decision. That is total BS. You need to clean up that shit. You can't be going around making those decisions. That is not what's best for you. You have to be smart about it. You're not a kid anymore. And what makes me the more upset, the biggest BS is that you are so nonchalant about it. That's what worries me. That you don't even realize what a dumb decision that was. Like, and at the end, like right when I was like at the peak of my when I was getting super frustrated, I told him, I know I'm supposed to, and I told him, listen, I know I'm supposed to be like the parent, the dad, that even though he's not my biological son, but I love him like a son. I told him, I know
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be the dad that's understanding and that's cool. And then you can talk to him about anything and he'll calmly um, reason with you. That way, the next time this happens, you still won't be afraid to come up. And so I was literally saying to this, but in a much higher base, right? Like much
Yeah.
deeper
Yeah. Oh
base.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but right now, I'm frustrated with you, and I think the only way for me to make you realize how stupid that decision was is to tell you the way that I'm telling you right now. I'm not insulting you. I'm not disrespecting you. But I just right now I can't be the cool dad that listens to you and helps you reason with it. I'm the dad that's gonna tell you you're dumb. This I didn't tell me he was dumb because I
Yeah.
didn't never insulted, but I tell him like that is BS and that you need to wake up and you need to mature. And he just stayed like quiet. We went to eat afterwards right there. And then once I facing it's gone, it's over with. Let's go have dinner as a family. I was gonna pay. He wouldn't want me to pay for him. He was kind of quiet at the dinner table. But when
Yeah.
we got home, we started watching a movie. He loves watching movies with me. So he was
Yeah.
like, let me give me a what's she was like, let's watch an old school comedy. Because I last time he came was we watched The Naked Gun and he could not stop laughing. He's 18 years old. Then we went to next week we watch
Yes.
Airplane.
Oh
And
yes.
he was laughing. So like, let's watch another one. So this week we started watching National Lampoon's Vacation. The first one turns out it's not
Yeah.
as funny as I thought it was gonna be. It started really so he laughed. I told him like, you know what, this is not as funny as I remember it.
Yeah.
Let's watch
Yeah.
another one. So we started. My wife suggested watch the Beat the Parents with
Oh
Robert De Niro
yes.
and Ben
Yes.
Stiller. The
Yes.
movie's hilarious. It's one of the best comedies ever. Dude, that kid would not stop laughing. That movie's hilarious. So after
Stalker.
watching the movie, yeah, I hugged them. I told them I loved them, and then the next day I talked to my wife. She's like, "You thought I was a little bit harsh?" And like, she was like, "Well, you didn't insult them, you didn't disrespect them, but you were like, yeah, like those things were, you know." are you being too harsh that the next time he makes a stupid decision, he's not gonna come on and tell you because he's afraid of how you're gonna react? Um, so I was like, yeah. So we talked about it, and I was like, you know what? Let me text him. So I text him like, hey, buddy, I love you with all my heart. You know, I want the best for you. I'm sorry about how I reacted. I just want you to be smart about things. I just want your life to be the best life possible. So he texts me back. He's like, you know what? I don't. He says, don't feel bad. I needed a wake up call. Um, so yeah. So once I guess I don't know if I can attribute it pretty much to being patient when you're out kayak fishing, bass fishing, or being having a podcast, or generally just maturing. Like we should never stop maturing and growing, right? Just because I'm in
Mhm.
my 50s now doesn't mean I have life figured out. But yeah, as life goes on, I think when there's conflict, I always, at the heat of the moment, maybe I'll be the one that says, you know what, done with the conversation. Let's not talk about it anymore. I'm done. This is my point of view. And then my wife's usually the one who wants to continue. Like, no, no,
Oh
we're
yeah.
not talking
Yep.
about it.
Yeah.
And then, a day later or 48 hours later, we'll be like, I'll usually be the one that comes up and says, hey, you know, let's go back to this. And so I really always re-examine myself whenever there's a conflict, whether it's with my wife or it's driving, you know, and somebody cutting you off or something like that, some disagreement
Yep.
on or just any interactions where there's people not seeing eye to eye. I always try to am I really right? Do I really have the right here, or should I just try to be at least understanding of the other point of view? It's important, man.
Oh yeah, dude.
Otherwise, you're gonna spend spend the rest of your life, fighting, arguing. Which is, I don't mean to speak ill about. I love my dad. I love my father. He's a great human being, great father. But we all have flaws. And one thing that I've learned, you know, a lot of things are learned, like in life, like your dad or your mom behaves this way, and then you kind of
Mhm.
imitate. And I've
Mhm.
always been, for whatever reason, I've always been the one that I was like, I want to be different than that.
Yeah.
Um, and my dad is like very stubborn. I love him, but he's very stubborn, and you cannot, me and him, we didn't spoke for like 2 years. We because of, we just he's always right, and he's always right. He's never wrong. If he broke something, that means that it stopped working. And if something stopped working, that means I broke it. He never
Yep.
breaks anything. It's just stopped
Yeah.
working. But if
Yeah.
it's me, oh, you broke it.
Yeah.
Um, and I've learned by, you know, I've learned, thankfully, I've always had that mental maturity of picking up what's good about my dad, and my dad's not perfect, neither am I, but then making sure I don't imitate what I thought. And that's one of the things. Like, my dad has always been like, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. And to this day, it's very hard for him. I've never heard my dad says like, you were right, or I'm sorry. Um, and so I've learned to not be that way.
Mhm. I love that. That's such a solid, like, you're right. People pick up everything from their parents or
Yeah.
their life experiences growing up as children, and that's where they get their characteristics from. Sure, everybody has their own individuality for sure, but like a lot of people fall into that loop. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've looked
Yeah.
at my son and said something and been like, dude, that my dad just said that. Like, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
That was my dad coming right out. And it's not negative stuff, it's like whether it's a joke, like he'll be like, oh, excuse me. I'm like, oh, you're excused, like something silly joke or something that my dad used to say all the time. But
You know where I
it's just,
learned that? Actually, one of my best friends. Shout out to my best friend Javier, who grew up together.
yeah.
He's, he's been one of my best influence I've gotten in my life. Um, Javier is a guy who would call me out on things that I needed to get better at. Like, one thing he called me out is like, you need to work on your emotional maturity. That's when I used to,
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
I couldn't figure out who I wanted to be with, who I wanted to date, stuff like that, or
Yeah.
just overreact and stuff like that. And I respond well to criticism when it comes from a good place.
Yes.
And I remember, so my dad, one of the ways my dad used to show that he loved me was by ridiculing me, making fun of me privately and publicly. He would
Yes.
say that I was ugly, that I had big ears, that I had big nose, that my tooth were crooked. Like, that's how he showed me love. Like,
Mhm.
and it affected me growing up when I was at school, because I've always felt like I was a loser. Because my dad, if he's mad at me, he's telling me he's a loser, and if he's happy with me, he's making fun of me. And I learned, and I remember I used to be like that. And one day, one of my best friend, Javier, just called me out on. He says, like, he had some friends over visiting, and I wanted, I guess, without me knowing it, I was showing how much I appreciated him by joking around and poking fun at him.
Yeah, making fun of him. Yeah, yeah.
And other people felt uncomfortable about it. And I remember, this is like in our late teens, early 20s. And he pulled me to the side one night and he says, like, you're not a bad person. You're a good guy, but people tend to be uncomfortable because you're always making fun of them. And I know why you do it. It's because that's who your dad was. Because he knows my dad from
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
It's like, that's who your dad was. That's how your dad is. And you've learned that and you act that way. And I get it. That's why I'm your friend. But people that are not your friend are never going to be your friend if you keep doing that. You make other people uncomfortable the way you treat me or treat other people.
Hmm.
And those words, to this day, just like it, they cut deep. I was like, I need to be a better person. I can't that's probably the first time ever that I made a decision. Like, I have to be conscious, not picking up on the wrong traits
Yeah. Yeah.
from growing up. And I think that was in my early 20s. And to this day, sometimes I'll be with somebody and I'll say something, I'll joke around, and they say, like, hey, you know what? They will tell me like a week later, hey, you remember that day you said this and joked about that? I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, dude, that was hurtful because of this. I'm like, dude, I am. And every time that would happen, I would be like devastated emotionally. Like, I would be frustrated. It's like, you never learn. You promised yourself you weren't going to be like your dad in that way. You promised yourself you're going to be a person. And you kind of like learn to forgive yourself, but not forgive the lessons. Like, I would get so upset with myself because I felt like I took one step forward, two steps back. But I've learned through life, it's like, it's one of those things where you want to be like, if you constantly make this mistake, you're not just going to stop making that mistake. It's want to
Yeah.
be, okay, you used to make that mistake 5 times a week. Well, next week, let's try to get that down to 4 times a week, and then the week after that, 3 times a week, and then the week after 2 times, so on and so forth. And then it'll happen once a year, and then it'll happen once every 5 years until it never happens again. So I've learned through time to kind of like not be too hard on myself, but at the same time be embarrassed when I did something that I promised myself that I was going to be better at. And I think that's how you mature.
Dude, absolutely. Okay, so it's growth. It's
Yeah.
emotional and mental growth. And of course, with growth, you're going to have what's called growing pains.
Yeah.
And growing pains is basically learning the lesson out of the whole situation, taking the lesson away from it to grow instead of just feeling hurt. And like a lot of people, like you said, like we talked about this earlier, you're in competition with yourself. So if it's 5 mistakes this week, it's going to be 4 mistakes next week and 3 mistakes, like that is the healthy growth. That is healthy, like maturity, like you're saying. On top of that, like when you do something wrong, make a mistake, whatever, you are have the best point of view on this. You are taking the lesson out of it and leaving the junk. That's awesome. Like you're leaving the mess and you're keeping the message, which is awesome. That's I hope people are listening to this show, because this is something that's a lot of people don't do. I don't do this sometimes. Like I fail at this on a regular basis, but you are taking the mess from the situation and leaving it in the situation, and you're taking the message from it and you're taking that lesson and moving forward and growing in life, which is super awesome. Now, you did say something that we hadn't touched on yet, and I did want to ask you about this. You had the rare experience, because not a lot of people get to do this. You had the rare experience of adopting a child. Like, and being going from no kids
Two,
to
actually.
yeah, well, yeah, going from no kids to kids. So can you like talk about that? Do you feel comfortable talking about
Yeah,
that at
yeah.
all? Or, yeah,
Like
okay,
it's
yeah.
funny because when like me and my wife got married, I was 40 years old. She was 30. How old? I'm older, 6 years old. She was 34.
Yeah.
The first thing we talked about on our date, the first day we had, is like, hey, listen. Now, because obviously I already, knew her, not knew her, but we have family, he had family friends in common and stuff like that. And so we have built this kind of relationship, friendship relationship. But the first time we actually on a date, first thing we talked about is, you want kids? No. You want kids? No. Okay, cool. Like, that's not gonna change. I'm in my 40s, and she's like, no, I feel the same way. Like, we don't
Yeah.
want kids. Nothing against kids. It's just not what we want.
No, it's very
So we
tiring.
were like, all right, because I don't want to, like, I literally broke up with somebody before me that I got along great. We had a good relationship, but that person was a much younger and wanted kids, but supposedly was going to make the sacrifice to not have kids just to be with me. But I've learned
Mm,
it's like, that's not fair to that other person.
no.
So I
Yeah.
told that other person, we got to split up. This is not, we have a great relationship, everything, but you're going to want to have kids. You're too young
Yeah.
to,
That and
um,
that's
you know,
first off real big of you, but that's a tough call.
yeah.
That's a tough call.
So my wife, love of my life,
Mhm.
we didn't want kids, but so through friends in church, we had this uh friends that her husband died when her daughter was 10 years old and her son was just born. um and then he passed away due to cancer. She
Mm,
developed some health problems, and when he was about, well, doing growing up, the kids had jumped from one foster place to another, kind of thing. And then they moved close to us. We used to go to we still go to the same church.
mhm,
And the daughter, Cassandra, she was 18 years old, and um my wife took special interest in her mom and her daughter, 'cause she knows they were struggling with it.
mm,
So at one point the kids were like left all alone. And granted, this is
mm,
two kids, an 18 and a 12-year-old, that really had jumped from foster to foster place. They never really had a father figure, and their mom and the mother figure was in and out of the hospital, so they never developed that relationship with.
mhm,
So my wife decided, which she told me, hey, Cassandra is staying with us for now. And in my mind, I'm thinking, God, like, back then I was like, I want a teenage girl living in the house? Like, that was kind of hard. I was like, that's kind of feels kind of weird.
mhm,
But the son too, like Roger, so Cassandra and Roger, she was 18 at that time, he was 12. So I was like, all right, we'll figure it out. Um, but it was kind of weird at first, but I through during that time, I grew to love those kids as my daughter and as my son. And it's interesting because I never wanted a kid, but I've always wondered what it would be to have a teenage daughter and watch her go on her first date and get a boyfriend and have a kid to go take him fishing and all that. So that experience was probably one of the most beautiful experience I've ever had. Both for Cassandra, just being a dad to Cassandra and being uh a father to Roger.
mhm,
And dude, it was like there were times where it was hard, and there were times where it's like, okay, we're gonna get through this.
mhm,
And it was fun. It was fun, and it was beautiful. It was hard at some uh during a certain time, but finally her mom got her health. They finally figured out after years and years of trial and error how she was going to be better and good enough to take care of the kids. And to this day, I remember Cassandra, her first boyfriend. I remember their first breakup, and eventually she met this young man, Brian. She got married. She's 25 years old. She's been married for 2 years. They're doing great. They live a couple of blocks from where I live. And then Roger spends a lot of time still with us. So and he's 18 years old now, I think. Yeah.
mhm.
He just turned it. And when he turned 18, I took him, graduated from high school. I took him uh to go fish with Andrew Full, the co-host of the Serious Angler podcast.
Mhm.
We went up to Niagara River.
That's
We fished for
awesome.
smallmouth bass, so it was fun.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful experience, man. Because I didn't like changing diapers and
Yeah.
babies waking up in the middle of the night. That's my thing. But having a 12-year-old kid and
Yeah,
what
yeah.
teach
They
him go
sleep in.
chicken fishing and
Yeah,
bond, kind of
yeah,
like me and my dad, and having a
yeah,
teenage daughter, grow up and go through that stages of her life. And to this day, they say, hey, if it wasn't, she would say, hey, if it wasn't for you, God knows where she
yeah,
would have ended, where they both would have ended up. It was
yeah,
funny because at first it wasn't anything in writing. It was just we're just helping them out, and they was like, okay, we need to get Roger registered for the next school year. So we went, filled out the paperwork at the public school, and then went to buy. We came home because my wife needed to go to work. So I was like, okay, let's go home. My wife go to work, and I'll take you kids to go to I had to drop Cassandra off for her work, and I had to take Roger to go buy his notebooks, all the school supplies, right?
yeah,
So all of a sudden they knock at the door, pop, 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 and I was like, "Who's knocking at the door?" And it was 2 o'clock. My wife had just left work. It was Child Protective Services. They had hired a, I don't know, private eye or something to find out where Roger was because they knew their mom was in the hospital, and they was like, okay, well, where's the kid? So once I registered him in school and I put my address, that sent up all the
yeah,
red flags to Child
yeah,
Protective Service, like, we found Roger, he's at this address. So they came knock on the door, and I was like, what's going on? It's like, well, they sit down and explain to me, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm taking care of him. Like, all right. I had to leave the house while she interviewed them, making sure they were safe.
yeah, yeah.
Um, which of
See,
course, so they interviewed Cassandra, interviewed Roger, and then they asked me to come back in, and then they say, all right, this is a scenario. You either sign for it, like, looks like they're in great hands with you, their kids are happy, are healthy, you're taking good care of them. We need you either sign this paperwork that you're, his legal guardian from this point forward until further notice, or he leaves right now with us to to find a foster home,
foster care, yeah,
foster
yeah,
care. And
yeah,
I couldn't reach my wife, so I'm like, screw it. My wife's not gonna complain. It was their
yeah,
idea to begin with. So I signed the
yeah,
paperwork, and then she called me back. It's like, guess what?
yeah.
They're officially ours now. And it's funny
Oh,
because we thought they were going back home, and we
mhm.
were planning on, we had a trip to Madagascar in Africa, a dream trip set up, and it was in 2 weeks. So as soon as I drop her, I told my wife, like, we're leaving for Africa in 2 weeks, right? Like, oh my God, I forgot about that. So I called the Child Protective Services, like, well, I need to find out where they're staying. I need to interview those people. I'm like,
Mhm.
who are we going to leave? We had some friends that could take care of them, but I told my wife, listen, if they're with us, then we're going to have some expenses, new expenses anyway. So, you know, we don't know what those expenses are going to be. We don't know how long they're staying with us. So let's just cancel and get refunded for what we can. So we were able to get refunded on everything.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
So we canceled the Africa trip. We took him on our family trip upstate New York. We had a great time. So
That's awesome, dude.
yeah.
Dude, that's such a great story. I love that, dude. That's so, and you get to have all, like, I'm not gonna say the best experiences because there's some real fun
Oh,
stuff
it was the best.
when
I
they're
mean,
little,
the
but
the small not so great experience with all small potatoes compared.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, nobody looks back and remembers the fights. They
Yeah.
just don't. They, I can't tell you. I mean, I'm sure I fought with my mom and my dad all the time, and I know I wasn't the best kid, but I don't look back and remember that. I look back and remember the times where we were like in a long road trip together. Like that's the or the life lessons that I got to learn from my dad, like showing me how stuff works in the garage, or my mom like showing me
Yeah.
how to cook some food, like stuff like that. I'm like, dude, these are awesome. Like just good memories. Nobody looks back on the bad stuff anyways. Um so hey, we are coming near the end, dude, and I do have like a small list of questions that I kind of run through with the guests, like just it's just something that's fun, at least
Yeah.
for me, and
Sure.
it's like questions that I genuinely want to know the answer to, and it's not like a one word answer. You don't have to, try and cut it down, like, by all means. So the first question I got is, it's not a fishing question. The question is, spend a day with anyone, Just spend the day with them. You could pick the
Why do you have
place.
to ask that?
You could pick the activity or what. One day with a person, who would it be?
Damn. Jeez. Does it have to be somebody that's still alive, historical?
No, man. I want to spend a day with Jesus. I got questions.
I know that's
I
a
do.
cliche one. Of course, I don't want to say that because that's a cliche one. Like
that's my genuine thought. Like I have so many questions.
But of course,
Yeah.
But other than that, man, I don't know. Like I don't. Lord, who would I want to spend? It's funny because I used to ask that question on my podcast when it started, and then I started. It always like caught everybody off guard, so I stopped using that question. Damn,
sorry,
never thought.
Here it is coming back full circle on you.
I know, right? I'm paying for what I use for my sins. Golly, I get so many. Like spend a day fishing.
No, and you could pick the activity, dude. Like it's
Other than my Lord and Savior Jesus, who would I put? That would be number one, of course, but I'm trying not to be cliche.
No, you don't, dude. It's
Oh man. Yeah, but I'm just gonna say my wife. I love my wife, honestly. Like I know I should probably pick somebody, but I just
man. Genuinely.
I'd say my wife. I love my wife,
Hell yeah.
I have a good time with her. We go fishing sometimes. She's my best friend.
Yeah.
I know I'm boring answer.
No, dude. I have a toddler and a 9-year-old. I would love a day with just my wife, just to hang out. Like I get it. All right. Your biggest fear?
Roaches, dude. I hate roaches. Golly, I can't. Dude, once those things start flying, it's over.
Yes.
Like I told my wife, murderers, rapists, Al Qaeda, ISIS, anyone. I'll give my life. Flying roaches, you're on duty. Like you take care of that shit. I'm not messing with those things.
I love it. Yeah. No, I mean, dude, they'll survive a nuclear blast. Like
dude,
they're one of the only creatures on the planet that can do that.
I'll fight Beelzebub myself, but
yeah,
roaches, no.
Yeah. See, I don't like spiders in small spaces. So like I get you. Did you know that when they were doing nuclear testing in the American desert, the blast turned the sand into glass and spiders were running everywhere? Fun fact. It's really crazy.
Really?
Look it up.
That's interesting.
Yeah, look it up. It's crazy. The glass, it was like green glass all over the ground. It was nuts.
What does spiders have to do with it?
They were living out there in the desert, and like their living situation got turned into glass, so they were just running across the top of it.
I'm like, what the?
Yeah, I'd be. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've peed myself a couple times, but it's usually from laughing. At that point, I think I'd pee myself from fear. But all right. Have you ever been broke because of fishing?
No, I've been very responsible with that.
Okay, I'm like alone.
Thank you, and starting in big part through Mariner Sales, Norsk Lithium, and Douglas Outdoors. If it wasn't for those 3 companies, I'd be flat broke probably.
Dude, hey, I was looking at those Norsk batteries the other day. We actually have some in Kayak City. They have their 12 volts of 14 amp or a 14 volt. I think that's so cool. You'll get such a better read on your screen.
I love Norsk Lithium, but they're amazing batteries.
Yeah, that's super cool. Sorry. Yeah. Side note. All right. What's your biggest struggle in life right now, man?
Man, I don't know. Other than this bronchitis, let me see. Oh man, dude, learning bow hunting right now.
Oh, how's that going, by the way?
I mean, the season, I didn't get any bucks this season. I got sick towards the end, so I couldn't go the last week. But it's funny because I'm doing I started this year, well, 2024, I should say. And I'm pretty good at archery, hitting a target. Bow hunting is, stealthy and all that. And I've learned from a good friend of mine. Shout out to Danny. He's a young dude, but he's been doing it for 12 years. So me and him went scoped out places. He kind of taught me how to track deer, what to do and all that. But we're doing, from what I've heard, probably one of the hardest way to hunt, which is not in a blind, not in a tree, but stands stock and stills, which is like you're literally out there without just natural cover and try to find a way to hide and kind of like see where you think the deer are gonna come through. And I got pretty good at kind of figuring out, I think at first during the early stages of the hunting season, so good that the first time, my first day out hunting, I had a deer come up like literally 5 yards from me. And I was doing perfectly just when I was about to draw on it. He was going through like a brush and he was about to hit an open area. So that's when I was going to take my shot. And it was going to be a 5 yard, literally a 5 yard shot. There was no way I was going to miss that. But when I turned, I hit my arrow against some ivies, and that created this ruffling sound, and he took off.
Oh.
And I was like, man. So that was kind of rookie mistake, right? Look around before you turn, move, so you don't make any ruffling, cracking noise. So I learned that lesson. Then the same spot a week later, same buck, but this time another lesson that I learned. So usually I'm like looking, the wind is the usually the deer are not going to come up behind you. Like, how do I say this?
They're not going to be downwind.
They're not going to be downwind, right? Like they'll smell you. They're not going to be downwind. So I'm looking to where they're going to be. So I'm not watching my back because the wind is on my back. So, or the wind is, I'm down, it's downwind. So it's like, there's no way they're going to come. They're going to smell me. So I have to be looking in this direction. So what happened was at some point I got up to pee. So I peed kind of like 10 yards behind me, out in this kind of like open area. So the thing about it is I didn't know. I learned that then, like, bucks, from what I understand, deer, for them, your smell is like when you smell a skunk, right? It's like it's pungent. It's like, ugh,
yes.
what is this musky smell? Like you definitely know it's a skunk, right? So from what I understand, I'm not an expert biologist on this, but when deer get your scent, it's the same way. It's like, this is not natural. This is not normal. Let's get out of here, right? Like they'll take off. But the thing about it, I didn't know. So when I peed, so especially if you eat something like asparagus, something like that, which I don't think I ate that before, but the smell, they can't recognize human pee. Like they just smell pee and they might think it's another deer or something else. So that, I guess what happened was that urine smell kind of like masked my scent. So a deer came up right behind me and I hear the ruffling and I turn around and he's right like 10 yards away from me, smelling that spot where I peed at. So, and he's like right, like 10 yards away from me and he's looking right at me, but he's so fixated on what he's smelling. So I was like, any movement that I do, he's gonna immediately alert him. So as I started like drawing my bow, it just went, and I was doing it as slow as I could because I learned enough to know like do subtle movements. So I was like creeping that. As soon as he felt that little movement, he raised his head, looked at me, snorted at me, which is the first time I ever seen that. Like snorted at me, started stumping on the ground and ran off. So once, I mean, I don't know if, from what I understand, again, I'm not an expert. Once that happens, you might as well leave to another spot because he's not going to come back there. And he probably just told everybody else that you're there, just by snorting in. Because the funny thing is he snored, then he runs behind me where I can't see him and starts keep snorting and snorting like he's antagonizing me and stopping. But he knows I can't shoot at him because I can't see him. So they're very smart. Like they have to be smart. Otherwise they'll be extinct.
Exactly.
So the third time I went, similar scenario happened. I was going to draw on a bow and then a male came from the other side and he saw me while I was actually ready to shoot and he snorted. And the thing about it is like the females know, you hear the snort, just run. Like, don't ask questions. They're not like, what are you snorting at? No, they're like, he snorted, go.
They just
run. So it's funny. It's like, I saw that he snorted and I'm like, they took off. I'm like, what the hell? They didn't even stop to ask questions. They just heard him snort. And then the same thing, the buck goes around me, runs behind me and starts
stomping and snorting and
stomping
stuff.
and snorting.
Yeah.
And the reason why I didn't shoot him first was because he was too young. Like the antlers weren't 12 inches apart from what I could tell, like
Okay. Yeah.
eyeballing it. So I was like, I
Yeah.
can't shoot at him, but I can shoot at that big doe behind him.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm drawing, he saw me through his peripheral vision. That's another thing I learned. Like bucks, they can almost see 360.
Yeah.
So I thought he couldn't see me, but eventually he could.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what I'm struggling with right now.
That's
and
a good
again,
struggle.
another time I answered way more information.
No, it's fine. I told you it's not a one-word answer, man. It's good. All right. What in skateboarding, you land a banger trick, like a major, like grind a giant rail, and like people around the world have never seen somebody grind that rail or grind something so big. So it's called a hammer. And what I've turned into, like, the point of accomplishment is hammers. Like, oh, that's a hammer. Like he did that. That's a hammer. He blew my mind with that. So in your life, your major life accomplishment, like your life hammer.
Oh, dude, I don't know.
Like something you can be proud of, dude. Like you're not gonna toot your own horn. It's not
being
like
a foster.
I'm so cool.
I think one of the most proudest things I've ever done is just being the father to Roger and Cassandra. I think that's because it's totally unexpected. It was just like literally all of a sudden, that's it. You're legal guardian and you're responsible not just to feed him and give him shelter, but to be a dad, because he didn't have a dad. And and figure it out on the fly.
How was that?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that's, I guess, my biggest flex on that. I'm a simple person. I don't think maybe it's disappointing that I don't have any accomplishment. Now I'm going to be depressed.
Dude.
I'm like, man, I've done nothing in this life. What a loser.
No, dude, you helped mold a young person into a responsible adult, dude. Like, that is a huge hammer. How was that, by the way? Like, one day you're not a dad, the next day, dad. Like, was there like a lot
hard,
of
especially with more than anything with Roger? It was a little bit. Cassandra was a little simple because we do Cassandra from going to church and but only for like a year. So all of a sudden she lives in this beautiful 18-year-old teenager now living in my house. That dynamic is kind of weird, because I'm in my late 40s. So now I have this teenage girl living in my house, and it was kind of weird. I never wanted to be in the house. I always wanted, wanted her to be her home. But I know for her it would have been kind of weird. So I was like, I'll go to work, or if she wanted to be home, I'll just be like outside or fishing or doing something, so she can have a home to herself and stuff like that. So that dynamic was weird at the beginning, just because it's thrown at you. Like it's like literally like something happened at her house that she like needed to get out of the house and she had nowhere to stay. My wife just calls me to say Cassandra is staying with us for now, indefinitely, until we figure things out. I'm like, okay, like what am I doing with the office? That was more, I think, the weirdest part, just because kind of like logistically, being in the house and stuff like that, you can't be prancing around your underwears in your whitey tighties anymore and stuff like that. So it was always like in the office, every time I would go in, if she was downstairs cooking or something, I'd be like, hey, can I go into your room for a second? You have anything you want to put away? I need to get something from the office. She's like, yeah, no, go ahead. That was always kind of weird at the beginning. But it turned out to be an amazing experience for both. Cassandra is more than anything was the emotional part of watching her go through, like, breakups and a boyfriend and all that. And that was cool in that aspect, just being there like a father figure.
I don't know, man. Like, that just, to me, I would be full of fear to begin with. Like, I would be like, okay, I don't want to mess this up. I don't really know. There's new, my environment has been this way for so long, and it's just upside down right now. Like, I'd be scrambling. but
No, and it was interesting because it was like, remember, they at no point in their life did they have a family structure. So it
Mhm.
was very frustrating at the beginning. Like, okay, you don't know how to wash clothes, you don't know how to cook, you don't. Well, no, Cassandra knew how to cook a little bit because she worked at a Mexican restaurant, but wash dishes, wash clothes, like be structured enough to do this. And for my wife, it was at the beginning. I had to talk my wife out of the ledge because my wife was came from us, you know, their dad left her when she was young, when she was like 5 years old. Um, left the family and left her sister, and her mom. But her mom, God bless her heart, she's an amazing woman, a strong woman, and she taught my wife since little. It's like, we don't cry here. We don't feel sorry for ourselves. We pick ourselves up. We make the most of it. So my wife's always been very structured and independent. And sorry,
no.
you can edit all those coughs out. I don't know if I muted my phone.
No, you
Mic.
muted it. You're fine. You're fine.
All
I
right.
don't edit anyways. It's all good.
So when my wife, I was like, you have to understand, like, she didn't have a mom because her mom was in and out of the hospital. We don't know where, who took care of her, what foster home through in this time or that time. So she wasn't very structured in her life. So
Yeah.
we had to learn. She had to learn quick, and my wife had to be very patient with her. And so there were times I was very impatient with Roger, and my wife would, just kind of like help me, like, all right, you have to be patient with him. He didn't have a dad. He never met his dad. And, so the teamwork between my wife talking me out of the edge, me talking her out of the edge, and, and all of us giving us pep talk to each other. That was pretty cool. And it helped us in the marriage as well.
Oh, dude, I bet that's like the tag team juice right there, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So we're going to move to, all right. Have you ever learned a lesson on the water that you've implemented in your life, or a lesson in life that you've learned
Patience.
to implement on the water?
I think patience, more than anything, being patient and think things through. And just be patient and think, think before you act.
I like it.
Problem solving. I can't remember any specific, but just in general.
So are you a calculated fisherman, or are you like a power fisherman, chuck and wind, or you can kind of calculate the situation and kind of adjust to both?
I think
just
at
a fishing
first,
question.
Just like everything in life, it's growth. Like, I
Mhm.
used to be like not calculated at all. Now I'm calculated. And I think that's helped. Like, to this year, I think I hit another. Like, I felt like I was plateauing for a while, and I think now I went up a little level. Not to say that I'm a Drew Gregory, Russ Snyder, or you're minor, but just a little bit better than I was last year.
Dude, like you said, growth, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So biggest mental or emotional block for you?
Mental, emotional block. Like fishing, or just in general in life?
In general.
Man, not being too hard on myself. Like, forgiving myself when I make mistakes, and understand that I'm not perfect, and I'm never going to be perfect, but at the same time learn. Not settle for not giving myself an excuse. That balance of not excusing yourself, like, I'm imperfect, screw it, everybody else needs to accept it. No. Be better, but at the same time, don't be too hard on myself. Sometimes whenever I know I screwed up, I'm very hard on myself.
Oh yeah.
As I should be.
Well, within reason.
Within reason, of course.
Yeah. Excuse me. Hang on. I don't even know if I muted myself, but I just coughed.
You did.
Yeah. All right, cool. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, you, at least from, you've discussed it. We discussed it earlier. You're all or nothing person. You're like 0 to 100. If you want to go snowboarding, you're going to Vail. If you want to go, on a father-son fishing trip, you're going to the Niagara River. Like, you are very much all or like nothing, like 0 to 100. So like, for when you do something wrong, same thing, 0 to 100. Like, you immediately feel like an ultimate regret, like a maximum amount of like, you almost punish yourself harder than somebody else could punish you, right?
Mhm.
So, dude, like I said, it's a great way to grow. It's a great way to learn, and you've explained a healthy way and how to leave the mess behind and take the lesson and use it as the message. Like that's awesome. Like by all means. So, no, dude, like I think that's an awesome block to have. Like some people just emotionally shut down when they hit controversy and they never get anything solved in their life. It's just it's
Yeah.
insane. So that's super rad. All right. So where's fishing fitting into your life now?
Oh man, it's it takes up much. Well, right now, I think once my work schedule gets back to normal, it'll take up most of my free time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's high up there. It's as far as free time goes, that's gonna take the lion's share of my free time.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Um okay. And last well, okay, so the last one's like a three-parter basically. It's like just kind of where you at with this, whether it's on the water or off the water. It's health. Hydration, diet, and mental clarity. What do you do for hydration? What do you do for your diet? And what do you do for mental clarity?
Oh, diet, don't even ask me, dude. I've put up so much weight, especially now that I'm not working, I'm trying to like eat more salad or something because I, like I said, in the last month I haven't worked that much at all. So
Yeah.
which is kind of good in the sense that I don't get to eat junk food when I'm on the road. I eat a lot of like fast food.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, no, I need to work on my diet a little bit more. I drink lots of water. I've always been like that. My friends would tell me, "He's like, dude, you drink a lot." It's like I've always drank a lot of water, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what was the other one?
Mental clarity.
Just fishing. Right now, mental clarity is it's something that I'm not saying I'm worried about it, but if I don't, if jobs don't start lighting up soon, I'm gonna have to get more time on the water fishing. So like we mentioned before, like not spend too much time on social media, which is crap.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes you get lazy, man. Like I've gotten that to a point where it's like, hey, man, like I should be. Let me start making videos or editing stuff, but then haven't gone out because I've been sick. I was
Mhm.
like, well, I can't not have a lot of videos to edit. So mental clarity is just, man, trying to spend time on the water as much
Yeah.
as I can.
Yeah.
And just being the moment. And something I'm struggling with right now is not spending too much time on social media.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I love it. Dude. So Armando, this is the time where you get to shout out everybody that's helped you and everybody that's helping you and shout out where people can find you.
I will. Uh, my wife always supports me. On my stupid fishing adventures and all my outdoor adventures. Whether it's hunting or going here, going there. So obviously, shout out to her, my biggest
Love it.
supporter. And where can people find me? Well, you have the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast. You can find it on any pod, podcast streaming platform. We have 2 shows a week. The Advanced Kayak Angler, which is hosted by Kurt Smith, that's when he dives into tips, tricks, and techniques to, help you become a better angler. That airs every Wednesday. And then I have a live show every Thursday. This kind of similar to what you and I hear. We don't go in depth that as much as you do into, everything that you and I gone through this, but for the most part, it's just talking to personalities, tournament directors, tournament anglers, social media content creators in the bass fishing, kayak fishing space. And sometimes we talk a lot of kayak bass fishing. Sometimes we dive on other subjects, but it's more like just, a couple of people, maybe 2, sometimes 3 or 4, just cracking open a beer and just having fun. And the live show is on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It airs every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Central. And then it goes live on the podcast every Monday. I think I upload it on Mondays. Usually it's a Monday mornings. It's there. You can follow me on social media, Bass Kayak and Beers. Again, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Shout out to my business partners, Mariner Sales. If you live in DFW, Mariner Sales literally has the biggest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories, like any obscure kayak accessory company, they have it. They have Jack Power, Yakima, Catch Boards, Catch Outdoors, um, what's the other one? The one where they make the batteries.
Nakwa,
Not yeah, I think they have Nakwa as well.
uh,
What is the
Dakota
other?
Lithium.
No, they have their own battery line of batteries called Force Energy, I think it is. I can't remember.
Force.
But they have
Oh
all
yeah.
the power hubs. I forgot the names of those power hubs. Like companies like Jack Power. So it's the competition of Jack Power.
Oh,
But
okay,
anyways, the
okay.
point is they have every single company that makes kayak accessories, ram mounts, all of them, Scotty, all of them. They have them. And the good thing is, if you don't live on the DFW Metroplex, you can also order online. So if there's any hard to find items that you're looking for your kayak, especially in the electronic side, go check out the website marinersales.com. I'm sure you'll find it. And if you live in the DFW Metroplex, go check out the website, look up at the address, and it's right there in the heart of DFW. Norsk Lithium, amazing batteries. I'm not saying because I'm sponsored by them or because I'm in a business relationship with them. I'm very picky on who I work with. And Norsk Lithium, they are genuinely, I can tell you, one of the best battery manufacturers right now when it comes to lithium. They have LiFePo, or the other type of lithium power batteries. There's LiFePo, and there's the other one I forgot. They're different. But I think the two major different types of lithium batteries. One of them is for like the motors, and the other one is more for like electronics. But they have both 12-year guaranteed warranty on them. Best warranty in the business. They're super light, amazing batteries. Go check out norsklithium.com. And last but not least, Douglas Outdoors. They've been with me when I had like 500 followers. Uh, and they're some of the best rods for bass fishing. I I love those rods. They have a new lineup called the Era rods, where they retail under $100, and they got the LRS, which stands for Lake, River, and Sea. They're kind of like the middle of the road rods. Um, and then they got the X Matrix lineup, which is their high end, tournament elite lineup of rods. Which those rods, I mean, it's ridiculous how lightweight and strong those rods are. The X Matrix lineup from them is one of the best rods, you know, for the money. It's hard to beat Douglas X Matrix rods. There's a lot of great rod manufacturers, but they're right up there with any of them. And the good thing about Douglas rod, it's small enough where, I know I'm friends with, on a first name basis, with Fred Contai, who's the rod designer, with
Mm,
their, you know, sales manager Kevin Johnson, with Christian Colabelli. It's really like a family atmospheres working with them, and to
that's
be
awesome.
able to actually pick the brains of whoever's designing the rods and learning from them, that in itself is worth being part of their business partner with them. Just being access to that mind that is Fred Contai.
That's
I learned
awesome.
so much from him and from rods, and from picking rods. I need to get him on the podcast. He's from Sacramento too.
Really,
So yeah, Fred Contai
dude.
is from Sacramento.
Dude, I got to hear this. You have to get him on the show.
Yeah, no,
You
I
have to
do.
get him on the show.
It's hard to work the schedule out because where he lives, but great dude, amazing
Yeah,
dude, funniest guy you'll ever meet.
awesome. Hell yeah.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to iCast. Is uh, crack down a few beers and hang out with Fred Contai. Amazing dude.
Well, when I come to visit my sister, you and me are gonna have to take a trip to Mariner Sales. I gotta see this place. By
Oh,
the
your
way,
sister lives
so
in Dallas or Texas?
she lives Fort Worth. Like she lives in
Oh yeah.
yeah, like Hazlitt.
Oh
So
yeah.
like
It's
it's a
close
small
by.
town. Yeah. It's right out that way. So yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, I'll definitely be out there eventually here. I was supposed to come out there last year and we are supposed to go fishing, and then life fell through. We had some family stuff come up, so it didn't work out. But I think we're gonna be hopefully this year. I'll hit you up. I'll let you know ahead of time for
Definitely.
sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Armando, thank you, dude. Thank you for coming on the show,
Thank you,
man.
man. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate. I'm sorry I kept you so late. It's late where you're
Nah,
at.
it's
and
it's it's all good, man. I go to sleep late. I'm a night owl.
awesome. I love it. Well, dude, I appreciate you. I'm gonna kick you over to the green room, and I'll catch up with you in a minute.
Tell those jerks at the catch, Matt and Brad, that I love them,
I will.
and I say hi.
I will. I hope. I'm gonna tell them that they have to listen to the first 30 minutes at least, so they can hear how much. So, dude, thank you again, Armando. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That was Armando Sola. If you guys have not heard of him, he gave you all the links. Go check him out. And if you want some interesting stuff, he also has a YouTube channel going on. Go check out the YouTube channel. He did a couple walkthroughs over there at Mariner Sales of some of the kayaks that they're working on and stuff. It's really interesting. I love watching that kind of stuff. So, and also I saw a video that he had on his social media the other day where he bumped into a couple things. If you haven't checked out that video, go check it out, because I've done that so many times, and I'm so glad he put it out there, because I stopped feeling so alone about running into shit all the time. So other than that, without any further ado, to you, I bring... What's up, everybody? From Walmart. We're back. We're back, baby, again.
Not a bad fish right there, guys.
Oh, no.
Out here catching Folsom bass right now, dude. Woo, he's a little chunker.